Chapter 4477. Face is like a rag. Aog stammered. No, it's nothing. It's just that there are a lot of evil spirits formed by the black fog. I'll go and help first. Hei Xinjiu was very smart. Even if Aog did not say it, she had already guessed most of it. Aog saw Yun Chujia's half-smile and became even more embarrassed. He ran over to help in a panic. Unfortunately, before he could make a move, the barrier was broken by Di Biming. Aog, why did he feel that he was not here to help? Instead, he was here to eat for free? While he was in a daze, there was a faint blue mist spreading in all directions. Aog only inhaled a little bit, and he felt his whole body become excited. He was shocked and immediately released the nightmare chi to envelop the three of them, isolating them from the blue mist. This blue mist is poisonous. What should we do next? Aog asked with a worried expression. Although the nightmare chi he released could temporarily isolate the poisonous blue mist, it wouldn't last for long. You protect little Geo. I'll attack the barrier, Di Biming said indifferently. But the blue fog is poisonous. Aog swallowed the rest of his words. A layer of light had risen around Di Biming, so the blue fog couldn't get close to him. Aog looked at the barrier that was trembling under Di Biming's attack and comforted himself. He wasn't completely useless. At least he could pretend to be a woman and make little Joe happy. At least he could release the nightmare chi to protect little Joe temporarily. He was still quite useful, really. A moment later, the barrier was broken through by Di Biming again. However, when he saw the situation in the formation this time, Aog's face immediately turned red. There were countless beautiful women in the formation scratching their heads. Moreover, they were all naked beauties. Di Biming's expression did not change at all. In his eyes, these women were no different from rocks. They were not even as pretty as rocks, so he naturally did not care. Although Aog had a strong resistance to the power of charm, he still had little Geo by his side. This was too embarrassing and annoying. At this moment, he heard Yun Chujia say in disdain, "Even if all of you transform, you should at least transform into something good-looking. All of you are crooked and ugly. Aren't you too ugly? The one with the red hairpin on her head, your figure is not even as good as Aogis, and you still have the nerve to twist around like a big bug. The one with the green earring, did you just shave your sharp face? And the little bitch on the left, your triangular eyes are still winking at San Jiaoyan? If you keep winking, you'll be thrown out. The second one on the left, you're even uglier than Aog. With your looks, you still want to seduce others." Aog, he finally knew that in front of these two perverts, his face was like a rag, long trampled under his feet. However, after Hei Xinjia's scolding, Aog's shyness was also thrown to the back of his mind. The Yen clan was originally very beautiful. The beauty of these women really did not catch his eye. It was only because Yun Chujia was by his side that he felt a little uncomfortable. After Aog's emotions calmed down, he began to attack those women. Those women who had transformed only had the power of charm and did not have much combat ability. In an instant, they were all killed by Aog, turning into smoke and disappearing. Aog felt that he was awesome. He had finally performed once and was no longer so useless. Chapter 4478. Spring breeze and rain formation. Although the three formations were easily dissolved, the three of them knew that this was only the beginning. The life-extinguishing formation could not be so simple. Aog suddenly exclaimed, "I have no way to use the nightmare chi and spiritual power. Lord, how are you?" Di Biming's expression changed slightly. "My cultivation has also been restricted, less than 1%. Aog was worried, but at the same time, he cursed in his heart. What a pervert! In such a huge formation that sealed his cultivation, there was still a portion of his cultivation left. Just as Aog was thinking, countless water droplets began to fall slowly. Those water droplets refracted 7 colored rays of light, looking extremely beautiful. Di Biming said coldly, "This is the spring wind and rain formation. These water droplets are extremely corrosive. Be careful, and avoid them. As Biming spoke, he put up a protective shield to protect Yun Chujio. As for the poor Aog, he could only rely on himself. Aog did not have any thoughts this time. Biming only had 1% of his cultivation left to protect little Gio. Naturally, he did not have the strength to protect him. As the water droplets were not very dense and the speed of their descent was not very fast, even if Aog's cultivation was sealed, he could easily dodge them with his movement technique. However, as time passed, the speed of the water droplets' descent became faster and more dense. Aog could not dodge in time, and a water droplet landed on the hem of his clothes. Almost instantly, a large hole was corroded on the hem of his clothes, and it was still spreading. Aog did not care much, and took off the entire outer garment, or else it would corrode his skin. On the other side, Biming was not at ease either. He only had 1% of his cultivation left, and he still had to protect Yun Chujio. He would not be able to hold on for long. Biming's eyes darkened, and he took out a small bone from his sleeve pocket. Yun Chujio knew that he was going to use a secret technique, so she quickly stopped him. Wait. If you use a secret technique, not only will your cultivation decrease for a period of time, but it will also trigger the cold poison. It's best not to use it lightly. Little Gio, the situation is critical now. If I don't use a secret technique, the three of us will die in this spring breeze rain formation. Biming said in a deep voice. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. Logically speaking, I was definitely not afraid of these water droplets before. It's just that the situation now is hard to say, but it's not impossible. I'll give it a try. What if I'm not afraid of these water droplets? Prince Charming, don't worry. I know what to do. I'll try it with my hair. At most, I'll become bald. It's not like I haven't changed before. Biming thought about it. If the situation turned bad, he could just turn off the protective shield. Therefore, he opened a gap in the protective shield, and Hei Xinjiu exposed the tip of her hair. Aog tried his best to avoid the water droplets while secretly cursing Biming for being an idiot. Little Gio was already very weak since she was unable to condense a physical body, yet he actually asked her to take the risk. Pooey. Sure enough, he only said it in a nice way. At the crucial moment, he had already sent little Gio away. How could anyone not be afraid of this poison? Even a thick-skinned origin beast like the bloodthirsty ghost, Ma, would be corroded by this water droplet. Wasn't little Gio courting death? At this moment, a water droplet fell on Hei Xinjia's hair, and then it disappeared. Aog felt that his eyes were playing tricks on him. This was impossible. How could it disappear all of a sudden? Then, another drop of water fell on Yun Chujio's hair, and it still disappeared. Chapter 4479. Aog was completely dumbfounded. What was going on? Little Gio was not a grain of sand. How did the water drop disappear? Hei Xinjiu was also dumbfounded. In the past, she could have swallowed these water drops into her dantian and fed them to the Guai Chao, but now, why did the water drop disappear when it fell on her hair? However, no matter what, as long as she was sure that she was not afraid of the water droplets, it was a good thing. At the very least, she could help the gigolo and Aog lighten their burden. Otherwise, she would have eaten for nothing. Yun Chujio used her courage to reach out her hand, and the water droplets that landed on her hand instantly disappeared. Hei Xinjiu immediately floated out of Biming's protective shield and began to swallow the water droplets up and down. All the water droplets that fell on Yun Chujio's body would disappear. Aog was surprised to find that the color of Yun Chujio's shadow had become darker as the number of water droplets that she devoured increased. Not only did the water droplets have no corrosive effect on her, they even had the effect of nourishing her soul. This was too unbelievable. Hei Xinjiu was in an extremely good mood. She kept flying around in the array and even boasted, "Come, give me a big basin of such venom. The more, the better." She didn't know whether the venom in the array had been used up or not, but before Hei Xinjiu could eat to her heart's content, there were no more water drops. Hei Xinjiu sighed regretfully. That's it? What a pity. AOG, pervert. Without the water drops, even though Biming's cultivation was limited, he still managed to break through the enchantment of the spring breeze and rain formation after an hour. As soon as the enchantment was broken through, the three of them heard the melodious sound of a zither. The sound of the zither was very soothing and melodious, causing them to relax involuntarily. AOG could not help but feel a little sleepy. He pinched himself, and only then did he wake up a little. Yun Chujia's eyelids were a little heavy, and a heavy drowsiness assaulted her. She yawned and said, "I'm so sleepy, I'll sleep first." "Little Jiao, you can't sleep," Biming shouted sternly. Although she didn't know what kind of a ray formation this was, if she fell asleep here, she might never wake up again. AOG was still better. With the stimulation to his body, he could dispel the drowsiness. However, Hei Xinjiu couldn't condense a physical body now, so she could only rely on her willpower to support herself. Although Biming's shout made Yun Chujiu wake up a little, as the sound of the zither became more and more soothing, Yun Chujia's eyes closed again. Biming glanced at AOG, and AOG immediately understood his intention. He took out a female outfit and began to dress up with a sad face. "Humph, it's not like I haven't changed before. What's the big deal?" AOG put on a female outfit with big red flowers, and even pinched his throat to talk to make Yun Chujiu happy. Although the corners of Yun Chujia's mouth twitched, she was probably used to it. AOJI's female outfit was no longer attractive to her, so she closed her eyes again. Biming was extremely anxious and racked his brain to think of a topic. "Little Jiao, what did you say before? What is the name of our child in the future? I almost forgot." "Say it again." Yun Chujiu yawned as she said, "The boy's name is DE, and the girl's name is DE. They both mean number one. I can't, I'm too sleepy. I'll sleep for a while." Biming gritted his teeth and took off AOJI's clothes and put them on himself. He imitated AOG and made Yun Chujiu happy. However, it did not have much effect. Yun Chujia's eyes closed bit by bit. Chapter 4480. Who was the thick-skinned one? Seeing that Yun Chujiu was about to fall into a deep sleep, Biming hurriedly stretched out his hands to wake her up, but his hands went through Yun Chujia's body. AOJI's eyes flashed, and he had a good idea of killing two birds with one stone. He slapped at Biming, and Biming subconsciously wanted to slap AOG away, but he immediately understood AOJI's intention. He withdrew the force of his palm and blocked it symbolically. Unexpectedly, AOG cried out in pain, "My lord, what are you doing? Why are you trying to kill me? Little Jiao, help!" Although Yun Chujiu was very sleepy, she still managed to open her eyes. AOG cried out even more miserably, "Little Jiao, help! The Lord wants to kill me while you are sleeping. I just like you. Why would he want to kill me?" Biming snorted, "Little Jiao is my woman, not someone you can covet, so you deserve to die." Biming raised his hand and was about to swing it at AOG again. AOG kept screaming and moaning, asking Yun Chujiu for help. Hei Xinjiu yawned, "Please act professionally. I am not a 3-year-old child. How can I not see through such a childish trick?" Hei Xinjiu closed her eyes again as she spoke. Biming glared at AOG fiercely. AOG cursed in his heart. "Am I being blamed for this? If you have the ability, think of a good way to prevent little Jiao from falling asleep." Biming originally wanted to create the illusion that the cold poison had relapsed, but he felt that he could not fool Yun Chujiu. What should he do? Even if he could make Yun Chujiu sober up for a moment, he would still have time to find the source of the music. However, how could he make her stay awake? Biming was so anxious that he wanted to bang his head against the wall. Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind, an extremely absurd idea. He only hesitated for a moment before he said coldly to AOG, "Turn your head away, don't look at us." AOG did not know what was wrong with Biming, but he did not dare to disobey, so he could only turn away. Biming's face was stiff as he said to Yun Chujiu, "Little Jiao, there are a few more scars on my body. Do you want to take a look?" Aog staggered and almost fell to the ground. Is the Lord's brain damaged? Shengzun thought. What time is it now? Why did he still let little Jiao see the bloody scars? Little Jiao did not even care about their fights. Why would she want to see the bloody scars? However, in the next moment, he heard He Xinju say happily like a rabbit, Really? Take them off, and let me see. Aog. Why did he hear ecstasy and a bit of vulgarity in little Jiao's voice? Just as he was thinking about it, he heard He Xinju say slyly, Sigh, it's a pity that I can only enjoy it with my eyes, but I can't get my hands on it. It's such a pity. Aog. He felt something shatter in his heart. The bright and lively image of the little fairy had instantly turned into a perverted and lascivious little scoundrel. A certain someone's face was as stiff as a stone. He didn't really take off his clothes, but it was just to attract He Xinji's attention. However, if he could make little Jiao stay awake, he would do it even if he had to run away, let alone take off his shirt. This was because no matter what, face or integrity was more important than little Jiao's life. Just as he was about to take off his shirt, he heard He Xinju say faintly, Prince Charming, Aog is still here. It doesn't matter if you're thick-skinned, but am very shy. You'd better not take it off. A certain someone, did you say the opposite? Who is thick-skinned? Chapter 4481 Heavenly Thunder Weapon. He Xinju naturally knew that Di Biming was being thick-skinned to keep her awake. Therefore, even though she was very sleepy, she forced herself to hold on with her will. Di Biming said to Aog, Talk to little Jiao. I'll go break the enchantment. Aog nodded, but he subconsciously wrapped his clothes. He Xinju was so smart that she immediately understood Aog's intention. She snorted coldly, Aog, what's wrong? Are you afraid that I will tease you? TSK. Don't worry, with you like this, even if you lie in front of me, I won't even look at you. It's too eye-catching. Aog, well, his face had been completely fed to the dogs. However, fortunately, He Xinju had been attacking Aog, which made his sleepiness disappear a lot. Aog glanced at Di Biming, who was attacking the barrier, from the corner of his eye. He thought to himself, what a freak. Was he not sleepy at all? An hour later, the music stopped abruptly when the barrier was broken. However, what happened next made Aog collapse on the ground. It was because the area they were in was not only covered by a tremendous pressure, but countless purple lightning bolts were floating above their heads, as if they were going to strike at any moment. Under the huge pressure, Aog struggled to speak. It's over. We won't be able to survive. Even if we have great abilities, we won't be able to resist so many purple lightning bolts. Yun Chuju looked at him as if she was looking at an idiot. Aog, are you out of your mind? Don't you know that I'm an expert at torturing lightning bolts? Don't you know that I'm a great killer of lightning bolts? Aog then realized that Yun Chuju had a heavenly thunder spirit root. However, would it work with so much heavenly thunder? Besides, she was already in such a bad shape now. Could she hold on? Could it be that the heavenly thunder dissipated after one strike? Aog was not the only one who was worried. Di Biming was also a little worried. After all, Yun Chuju was no longer the same as before. Could she still withstand the lightning strike? He Xinju was not too sure, so she put her hair outside the protective shield. Almost as soon as He Xinji's hair revealed the protective shield, several bolts of lightning struck Yun Chuju's hair. Aog was surprised to find that after the lightning struck He Xinji's hair, it disappeared. It was exactly the same as the raindrops before. Where did the lightning go? How did it disappear into thin air? At the same time, He Xinji's figure turned darker than before. He Xinju left the protective shield and started to devour the purple lightning like a diligent bee. This guy felt that it was a pity. If she had a solid body now, the purple lightning would be a great tonic. Aog was already dumbfounded by what he saw. Pervert. What a pervert. After the purple lightning bolts were devoured by Yun Chuju, Di Biming quickly broke through the barrier. The three of them discovered that they were still standing at the entrance of the 10,000 Ghost Cave. They did not know if they had just been teleported to another place or if everything was an illusion. Yun Chujio said with some confusion. That old witch, Mei Yen, first said that as long as she died, the life extermination array would be activated. Later on, she said that the life extermination array was to prevent us from obtaining the soul-gathering pearl. No matter what she said, this life extermination array is too simple, isn't it? Aog curled his lips. If she had the ability to set up the life extermination array, she wouldn't have tried so hard to borrow the power of our Yen clan. However, little Jiao, you're right. This life extermination array is too easy for us to crack. I'm afraid there's a trap. Chapter 4482 Cabbage, time is limited. No matter what, let's go in first. Di Biming said in a deep voice. Yun Chujio and Aog nodded, and the three of them walked into the Myriad Ghosts cave. Before entering, Hei Xinjiu glanced at the three crooked words. She was puzzled. Why did these three words look familiar? However, at this moment, her sleepiness came again. She could only try her best to fight it and put it to the back of her mind. What they saw was an endless tunnel. To their surprise, there were a lot of cabbages growing on both sides of the tunnel. Aog said cautiously, "This is the cave of 10,000 ghosts. These cabbages are definitely not simple. Maybe they're disguised by Yuanji. Everyone must be careful." Yun Chujio looked at him as if she was looking at an idiot. These are obviously ordinary cabbages. How are they Yuanji? Moreover, even if they want to disguise themselves, can they disguise themselves as common grass? Only if they have water in their heads would they disguise themselves as such eye-catching cabbages. Aog thought about it, and it made sense. Who would be crazy enough to disguise Yuanji as such eye-catching cabbages? Then, there was a problem. Didn't those evil spirits like to eat human flesh raw and drink human blood raw? Why would they grow so many cabbages? It was really unbelievable. Aog really could not think of a reason for the evil spirits to do so. He asked, "Little Jiao, you have always been the smartest. Why do you think those evil spirits planted so many cabbages here?" Yun Chujio rolled her eyes. "I'm not an evil spirit. How would I know? They probably think that cabbages are 100 fortune, planted here to attract wealth." Aog stumbled. Regarding this explanation, he had nothing to say. Yun Chujio looked at the dainty cabbages and sighed. "It's a pity that I didn't bring those rabbits. Otherwise, they would have liked it very much." Aog, as the saying goes, a thief never leaves empty-handed. You should pluck these cabbages. Aog, putting aside whether he was a thief or not, and whether these cabbages were worth stealing, just speaking of this, you're too damn careless. Don't you know what you're doing here? And you're even plucking cabbages? Pluck my ass. The three of them walked for a while. Apart from the cabbages on both sides of the corridor, they didn't even touch a single bug. Aog, are you sure we are in the right place? Are you sure this is really the 10,000 Ghosts Cave? Did you lead us to the wrong place? This doesn't look like the 10,000 Ghosts Cave to me. Instead, it looks like a vegetable field. Hei Xinjiu said while yawning. Upon hearing that, Aog immediately took out the map and looked at it again and again. He said weakly, "That's right. This is the 10,000 Ghosts Cave." Perhaps no one has dared to come here for a long time, so the evil spirits are so hungry that they have no choice but to eat cabbages. Yun Chujio glanced at him. "Do you believe what you say?" Aog touched his nose and said, "Little Jiao, it's not my fault. The main reason is that no one can leave the 10,000 Ghosts Cave alive, so no one knows what's going on inside. However, one thing is for sure, these cabbages must be hiding a murderous intent." Yun Chujio saw Aog's anxious look, and evil water rose up. She said faintly, "I still have a guess. Maybe those evil spirits planted a cabbages when they killed a person. These cabbages are like gravestones for them. Maybe there are their corpses down here." Aog looked at the endless cabbages and inexplicably shivered. God, if what little Joe said was true, how many people would be buried down here? Chapter 4483 was consecrated with cabbages. Yun Chuju looked at Aoj's appearance and could not help but feel happy in her heart. This Aog usually had the arrogance of a crown prince, but in reality, his courage was just average. Aog did not know that Yun Chuju was deliberately messing with him, so he quickly moved closer to Di Baiming. It was safer to follow this pervert. Aog also thought it through. Anyway, it was impossible for him to be together with little Jiao, so there was nothing to pretend about. As for the arrogant crown prince style, he would temporarily put it aside. His little life was more important. The three of them did not know how many cabbages they had passed by, but their eyes suddenly opened, and an incomparably huge stone room appeared. Yun Chuju exclaimed in surprise. She realized that ever since she entered the stone room, her body had actually turned into a physical body. Although she felt very weak, she had indeed condensed into a physical body. It's probably because of the existence of the soul-gathering pearl here, or perhaps there's a special array formation. That's why it's like this, Di Baiming guessed. Yun Chuju nodded and began to size up this huge stone chamber. There was a huge pearl hanging on the ceiling of the cave, illuminating the entire stone chamber as if it was daytime. There were countless caves on the surrounding stone walls, just like a beehive. There was a statue in the middle of the stone room. It was a graceful woman, but her face was covered by a red veil, so her face could not be seen clearly. There were many cabbages on the table under the woman's statue. They were probably used to worship the woman. Yun Chuju's gaze fell on the cabbages used to worship the woman. The corner of her eyes twitched, and she muttered softly, "This statue is the ghost ancestor, right? These evil spirits are really stingy. They only worship some cabbages." Just as Yun Chuju finished her sentence, a muffled voice roared, "You little punk! What do you know? The ghost ancestor loves cabbage the most. She once said that cabbage is 100 riches, a good thing that brings wealth. That's why we went through so much trouble to obtain a few cabbage seeds. We served them like we served our ancestors, and that's why we nurtured so many juicy cabbage. You ignorant little punk! How dare you insult our feelings towards the ghost ancestor? You deserve to die." Yun Chuju and the other two looked towards the source of the voice and saw a big man walking out from a cave. That big man was holding a large knife in his hand and looked as if he was a demon. However, He Xinjiu was not afraid of him at all because Di Baiming had already protected her in his protective shield. He Xinjiu blinked her eyes. "Little drifter? Cabbage was 100 fortune, a good thing to attract wealth." Why did the tone of the burly man's voice sound so familiar? Could it be that the people here also knew about Drifter? While the three of them were sizing up the burly man was also sizing up the three of them. The burly man's gaze finally landed on Yun Chuju, and he frowned. According to tradition, if anyone dares to use cabbage as an argument, they will be killed without mercy. However, since you, little drifter, share the same fate as us, I can forgive your sins. Little drifter, I guess you came here to absorb the power of the soul-gathering pearl, right? TSK, you're too weak. I reckon that even if you cultivate for thousands of years, you might not even be able to form a single finger. However, we have more men than women here. I can make the decision to keep you here. As for the other two, leave quickly. Otherwise, you can only become fertilizer for the Chinese cabbage." Aog immediately quivered when he heard this. It turned out that little Jiao had guessed correctly. There were actually corpses underneath those Chinese cabbage. However, from what this burly man meant, those people wouldn't be killed just because they discussed a few words about Chinese cabbage, right? Chapter 4484. If you don't enter the tiger's den, you will only get the tiger's cub. However, Di Baiming's focus was on more men than women. The gaze he gave the burly man was so cold that it could freeze. The burly man sensed Di Baiming's gaze and took a few steps back. Then he snorted coldly. "Kid, I know your cultivation isn't weak, but we have the advantage in numbers. You guys aren't our match. Moreover, this little punk is very weak. We can make her disappear completely in a minute. Therefore, I advise you to leave the little punk behind and leave this place quickly. Otherwise, there will be a few more cabbages. Aog glanced around and did not find anyone other than the burly man. He said with the arrogant demeanor of a crown prince, "Don't bluff. You are clearly the only one here. There aren't many." Aog's voice suddenly stopped because there were people poking their heads out of the caves and glaring at him. Aog felt that if the gazes of those people could kill, he would have become a sieve by now. Thus, the crown prince attitude that he had just displayed instantly disappeared without a trace. The big man pursed his lips.
See?
The reason why I'm the only one coming out is because I have to be polite before I attack. Otherwise, you would have lost your little lives long ago. Little Drifter, I don't have a dual cultivation partner yet. Although you're very weak and useless, you're quite good-looking, so I'll reluctantly accept you as my dual cultivation partner. Let me tell you, you've accumulated 8 lifetimes of virtue to be chosen by me. In this 10,000 spirits cave, I, Lord Tiger, am not a big or small figure. If you follow me, you'll be able to get closer to the soul-gathering pearl. Otherwise, you little weakling, I'm afraid you will only be able to look at the soul-gathering pearl from afar. Upon hearing the burly man's words, Aog was immediately enraged. Damn it, even though little Geo did not fancy him, it was not something that this bullshit Lord Tiger could covet. He was courting death. Aog was just about to fly into a rage when Yun Chujio said with a faint smile, "Big brother, I'm really sorry. Your conditions are too good. I'm not worthy of you. I know my own limits. A good-for-nothing like me is really sorry to delay your marriage. I only wish to have a place to cultivate." The burly man's eyes flickered. No matter what, he had to get rid of the 2 men first. These 2 men were not weak. If they fought, even if they could win, they would probably suffer a great loss. As for this little punk, there was still a long way to go. He was not afraid that she would not comply. Hence, he laughed and said, "All right, since you don't think that you are worthy of me, I won't force you. Let the 2 of them go. I will arrange for you to cultivate in the cave." Yun Chujio nodded. "I will talk to them over there, and then let them leave." Although Di Baiming and Aog did not know what Yun Chujio was up to, they still followed Yun Chujio to the exit of the stone chamber. Yun Chujio did not say anything. She just used her finger to write on Di Baiming's palm, "If you don't go into the tiger's den, you won't get the tiger's son." Di Baiming immediately understood Yun Chujio's meaning. Only the evil spirits knew where the soul-gathering pearl was. If they fought it head-on, even if the 3 of them could escape unscathed, they probably would not be able to get the soul-gathering pearl. If they were forced into a corner, those evil spirits would probably jump over the wall and destroy the soul-gathering pearl. If that was the case, it would really be a futile effort. Yun Chujio's intention was very clear. She wanted to blend in with the evil spirits first and find out the whereabouts of the 5 soul-gathering pearls. After that, she would make the next step. Chapter 4485. The rules of the 10,000 Ghost Lair. To be honest, Di Baiming was not at ease with Yun Chujio staying alone in the 10,000 Ghost Lair. Putting everything else aside, just the fact that the burly man said that there were more men than women made him uneasy. Wasn't this like a sheep entering the tiger's mouth? Aog also felt that it was not safe to do so, but he learned his lesson and did not say anything. Instead, he waited at the side for Di Baiming to make a decision. Di Baiming looked at Yun Chujio's determined gaze and finally nodded. He believed in her, just as she believed in him. Di Baiming nodded slightly, then turned around and walked out of the cave. When Aog saw this, he looked at Yun Chujio worriedly and followed Di Baiming. Yun Chujio looked at Aog's small steps and felt an indescribable feeling in her heart. Why did she feel that Aog was now closer to the gigolo than to her? Did this guy just find out that he was right? Yun Chujio saw that the 2 of them had already gone far away, so she turned around and walked in front of the big man who called himself Master Hu. "Big brother, what do you think I should do next? I'm new here, and I don't know anything. Please take care of me." The big man looked at Yun Chujio's beautiful face and felt an itch in his heart. However, thinking about how there were more wolves and less meat in the den of 10,000 ghosts. If he was too reckless and scared the little beauty, she would probably be taken advantage of by others. Therefore, he restrained the greed in his heart and patted his chest. Little drifter, don't worry, I will take care of you from now on. You can call me Lord Tiger from now on. I don't know, how should I address you? Lord Tiger, my name is Little Geo, Yun Chujio said with a smile, but in her heart, she was cursing Lord Tiger. Sooner or later, I will make you a dead cat. Lord Tiger nodded. Whether it's the cave of 10,000 spirits or the cave of 10,000 ghosts as outsiders say, one thing is right. There are nearly 10,000 people living here, so this rule is very important. Therefore, I'll first tell you about the rules here. Do you see those caves on the stone walls? The people on the first floor are the ones with the highest status. The higher you go, the lower your status will be. If a little drifter like you agrees to dual cultivate with me now, you can live with me in the caves on the first floor. If you don't agree, then according to your status, you can only live in the cave on the top floor. You have to know that the higher you go, the lower the amount of soul power you can absorb, and the longer it takes for you to condense a physical body. So, at this point, Lord, who didn't continue speaking. Yun Chujio naturally understood what he meant, but she only smiled and didn't say anything. Lord, who was a little angry, but after thinking for a moment, he still suppressed his anger. He continued, apart from that, the people at the highest level are also responsible for taking care of those cabbages. If anyone dares to injure cabbages, they will be killed and used as fertilizer for the cabbages. Lord, who was most likely afraid that Yun Chujio would not know how powerful it was, so he added, these cabbages are used to worship the ghost ancestor, so you must be careful. If you really touch the cabbages, I won't be able to save you. Yun Chujio's heart was like a beeping dog. She did not know if the ghost ancestor was sick or if these evil spirits were sick. What was so good about these lousy cabbages on the street? Even if it was for the sake of earning money, it was fine to carve a stone cabbage and place it at the entrance of the cave, but there were actually so many of them. Moreover, if one touched it, one's head would fall off. If this was not sick, then what was? Although she was cursing silently, Hei Shinju still nodded her head with a kind expression on her face. Lastly, every 10 days, everyone will have a chance to cultivate close to the soul-gathering pearl. There's a reason for this. The stronger the person, the higher the rank. With a weakling like you, you can only be ranked at the bottom, Lord Tiger said. Chapter 4486. Black mole between the eyebrows, Master Hu. It seems that we can't see each other's cultivation here. How can we distinguish the strong and the weak? Yun Chujio asked curiously. Master Hu said casually, isn't that simple? We can just have a fight. Also, you see the 5 black moles between my eyebrows, right? This means that I'm a 5-star black rank, one of the best in this 10,000 ghost lair. Yun Chujio almost laughed out loud. What the hell? The black mole between this idiot's brows represented cultivation? She thought it was a pockmark. Moreover, wasn't this too terrible? If he cultivated to a certain level, wouldn't he have a face full of black moles? Although this fellow thought it was funny in his heart, his face was full of admiration. Lord, who is indeed amazing. Then I wonder what the lowest cultivation is? Lord, who straightened his back, obviously enjoying Yun Chujio's flattery. He grinned and said, the lowest is naturally a new drifter like you who doesn't have a mole. After you cultivate for a period of time, a 1-star black mole will appear between your brows, which means that your cultivation level has reached 1-star black rank. Yun Chujio was stunned. As long as she transformed into a human, there would be a red mole between her brows. Could it be that she didn't have a red mole between her brows now? She temporarily put down the doubts in her heart and asked, so they are all black moles. I thought there would be other colors. It's not that there are no other colors. It's just that, forget it. There's no need to talk too much with a new drifter like you. You probably don't know how to use the air controlling technique, even though you've just cultivated it. Do you see the stone stairs at the side? You can climb up along them. When you reach the 18th floor, you can just randomly find an empty cave. Big Tiger Grandpa pointed at the stone stairs in the distance and said, Even though He Xinjiu had a lot of questions, she still thanked him profusely. Then, she bade goodbye to Big Tiger and walked down the stone stairs. Big Tiger watched from not too far away and calculated in his heart that the stone stairs were very steep. The little drifter was also a newcomer, and her body was very weak. He reckoned that she would know when it was difficult and retreat. Then, he could take advantage of the situation and take her as his dual cultivation partner. Although this little drifter was so weak that it was unbearable to look at, she was really beautiful. Lord, who was thinking about something beautiful when he saw Yun Chuju, had already climbed up the stone stairs and was climbing up with great difficulty. Lord, who thought to himself, this is just the beginning. Soon, she won't be able to hold on anymore. When that time comes, I can take the opportunity to be a hero and save the damsel in distress. I'm not afraid that she won't fall in love with me. However, Lord Hu saw that even though Yun Chujio was so tired that she stopped several times in the middle, she still climbed up to the 18th floor and randomly chose a cave to enter. Lord Hu was so angry that he gritted his teeth. He did not expect this little punk to be so tough. Just as he was getting angry, he heard a gentle voice from behind. Lord Hu, TSK, are you taking a fancy to this new beauty? What? Do you think she's prettier than me? Or is Lord Hu no longer interested in me? The person who spoke was a woman with 3 black moles on her forehead. Although her looks could not be compared to Yun Chujius, she was considered above average in this 10,000 ghost lair. When Lord Hu saw the woman, he immediately hugged her waist and said, Li Ji, little beauty, are you jealous? Even if I became a dual cultivation partner with that little drifter, you are still my darling. How could I forget you? Today you accompany me well. When the soul-gathering pearl opens, I will move your seat forward. Li Ji then turned her anger into a smile and said gently, I'm just afraid that you'll forget about me. As for who you become a dual cultivation partner with, that has nothing to do with me. Lord Hu teased a few more times and left with Li Ji in his arms. During this time, Li Ji turned her head to look at the cave where Yun Chuzhou was, and a trace of killing intent flashed in her eyes. Chapter 4487. Chu Mo Yun Chuzhou did not know that Li Ji had the intention to kill her. This fellow was currently having a heart attack in the cave. Only after a while did she realize that she could no longer use the previous cultivation methods. She could not even use her inner vision of her Dantian, much less absorb soul power. Just as this fellow was feeling vexed, someone knocked on the dilapidated wooden door at the entrance of the cave. Yun Chuzhou opened the wooden door and saw a woman standing at the door. To be exact, it was a very fat lady. The fat lady was stunned when she saw Yun Chuzhou's appearance. A hint of inferiority flashed in her eyes. The inferiority flashed in the fat lattice eyes. She smiled and said, Hello, my name is Chuemo. I live next door to you. Although Yun Chuzhou did not know what Chumo's intention was, she was in a hurry to find someone to clear her doubts, so she said with a smile, So it's Sister Mo. You can call me Little Gio. Please come in. Yun Chuzhou noticed that there were 3 black moles between the fat girl's brows, and she was puzzled. Logically speaking, this fat girl had already reached the 3rd star of black grade, so why was she still living on the 18th floor? After the fat girl entered Yun Chuzhou's cave, Yun Chuzhou suddenly felt that her cave had become even more narrow and closed. The cave was empty, so Chu Mo did not care and directly sat on the ground. Seeing this, Yun Chuzhou could only sit on the ground and said with a smile, Sister Mo, I'm new here and don't know anything. Please take care of me in the future. Chu Mo smiled and nodded. Little Gio, since we are neighbors, we naturally have to help each other. Yun Chuzhou said a few polite words and then said, Sister Mo, I came here to condense a physical body. But how can I absorb soul power? Chu Mo smiled and said, The cultivation methods outside naturally won't work. Let me teach you a set of methods to absorb soul power. Chu Mo immediately taught Yun Chuzhou a set of cultivation methods. In fact, it was similar to the methods to cultivate essence energy and spirit energy, but there were only slight differences. Yun Chujio was naturally extremely grateful to Chu Mo, but it wasn't good to ask too many questions since they had just met. Chu Mo seemed to have seen through it and smiled. Little Joe, I won't hide it from you. Because of my physique, I've been ridiculed and despised many times. When you saw me, there wasn't the slightest bit of abnormality. Just based on this point, I'm definitely going to make a friend of yours. If you have anything you want to ask, just ask. Hearing that, Yun Chujio smiled and said, Sister Mo, this looks and figure is just a bag of skin. Those who judge people by their looks are all idiots. I want to do such a stupid thing. Chu Mo smiled bitterly and said, That being said, I'm still a little too fat, but there's nothing I can do about it. Unless I condense a physical body in the future, I can only think of ways to become slimmer. Yun Chujio saw that Chu Mo's mood was a little depressed, so she changed the topic and said, Sister Mo, were you brought to this 10,000 ghost lair by the ghost ancestor? Chu Mo nodded and said, The people inside are basically all brought here by the ghost ancestor. Except for you. Yun Chujio said in puzzlement, According to what you said, my situation is very special? Then why aren't you and Master, who's surprised to see me? Chu Mo explained, Although your situation is special, there were some people who came here in the past who were in a similar situation as you. However, the weak are prey to the strong in this 10,000 ghost cave. They will be killed in a short time. Yun Chujio nodded. This was understandable. A strong dragon did not suppress a local snake. Those who came later would inevitably be ostracized. In addition, their strength was very weak, so it was normal for them to be killed. Chapter 4488 Hungry, Sister Mo, then tell me about the ghost ancestor. Since you were brought here by the ghost ancestor, you must have lived here for nearly 10,000 years, right? Yun Chujio asked curiously. Chu Mo smiled and shook her head. Little Joe, it's not that I don't want to tell you, but when we were brought to the ghost territory by the ghost ancestor, all the past events were wiped clean, and we can't remember anything. Moreover, for some unknown reason, we had lost our intelligence for a long period of time. We were muddle-headed and killed everyone we saw. It was only recently that we regained our intelligence. We only have a few bits of memories of the ghost ancestor. You've seen those cabbages, right? Most of us only remember that the ghost ancestor said that cabbages were a source of wealth. That's why we planted those cabbages. Yun Chujio nodded her head. Speaking of which, it made sense. If these people had been absorbing soul power, they would have already condensed their physical bodies. They wouldn't still be trapped here. No wonder AOG said that the 10,000 ghost lair was very brutal. It was probably because those people had entered the 10,000 ghost lair a long time ago. These evil spirits had lost their intelligence at that time, so they were naturally very brutal. Just as Yun Chujio was thinking about it, her stomach began to growl. She instantly felt that she was going to starve to death. Ever since she became a drifter, she couldn't eat anything. She had always been hungry. Now that she had a physical body, she naturally felt very hungry. Sister Mo, do you have anything to eat? I'm going to starve to death. Yun Chujio said pitifully. Chu Mo was stunned. Hungry? Although we have physical bodies here, it's only because of the effect of the array formation. But in reality, we don't have a body, so how can we be hungry? Yun Chujio, that's true. Could it be that she was just psychological? Yun Chujio resisted the growing hunger and said a few words to Chu Mo. Seeing that she was absent-minded, Chu Mo tactfully bid her farewell. After Yun Chujio sent Chu Mo off, she was so hungry that she wanted to scratch the wall. She was iron rice and steel. She was so hungry after not eating. She had not eaten for a month. How could she not be hungry? She was so hungry. This fellow had wandered around the cave for dozens of times, but he still could not find anything edible. He could not possibly gnaw on stones and wooden doors, right? This fellow was so hungry that he could not stand it. He walked outside the cave and looked around. Outside the cave was a narrow corridor. There were many caves in the corridor. Some were occupied, and some were empty. This fellow took a lucky break and entered the ownerless caves to take a stroll. Unfortunately, he didn't find anything to eat. This fellow's gaze fell on the cabbage that was offered to the ghost ancestor. In the past, this fellow didn't like to eat vegetables the most. But now, looking at those cabbage, he was practically craving for it. If he were to hug a cabbage and take a few bites, what a wonderful thing it would be. Thinking of this fellow blamed D. Biming and AOG. These two idiots didn't even mention leaving some food for her when they left. They were planning to starve her to death. She didn't even think about it. She hadn't eaten anything for more than a month. How would D. Biming and AOG think of leaving anything for her to eat? Although this fellow was so hungry that she was about to cry, her remaining rationality told her that although cabbage was good, her life was more important. If she secretly ate the cabbage on the table, she probably wouldn't be able to live. Therefore, this fellow swallowed his saliva and obediently returned to his cave. However, as soon as she entered the cave, Chu Mo knocked on the door again. "Little Jiu, let's go. It's time to work." Work? Yun Chujiu then remembered what Master Hu said about taking care of the cabbage. Once they left the stone room, they would have no physical body, so how would they take care of the cabbage? Chapter 4489. The miserable He Xinjiu Yun Chujiu walked out of the stone room with a belly full of curiosity. Then, she saw Chu Mo directly use the airbending technique to float down. Yun Chujiu, Chu Mo landed on the ground. Only then did she realize that Yun Chujiu did not know the airbending technique. It was just that the airbending technique could not carry anything too heavy, so she could not help. He Xinjiu climbed down the stone stairs with a loud thud. As this fellow was climbing slowly, the people behind her were cursing and urging her. There was even someone who threatened her. "Little trash, hurry up and climb, or it'll push you down to your death." He Xinjiu was holding her anger in her heart. However, she was new and did not want to cause any trouble. The black books in her heart had recorded all these people. It would not be too late for little Jiu to take revenge. She would see. He Xinjiu was so tired that she was panting. She finally climbed down the stone stairs. This guy was already very weak, and he was starving to death. Now, he felt that he was only left with half his life. He Xinjiu made up her mind. No matter what, she had to learn the air controlling technique first. Otherwise, it would be too tiring to go back and forth. Seeing that Yun Chujiu was staggering, Chu Mo quickly went up to support her. Before she could say anything, she heard a sarcastic voice saying, "TSK, TSK, the fat pig and the trash are together. It's really a group of people." Yun Chujiu turned her head and saw a woman with 3 black moles between her eyebrows standing not far away with a face full of ridicule. "Li Ji, watch your mouth. If you have the ability, let's fight," Chu Mo said angrily. Li Ji curled her lips. "I'm not going to fight with a fat pig like you. My delicate skin is not as thick as yours. With your pride, you can stay in the 18th level for the rest of your life." It was obvious that Chu Mo had been poked in a sore spot. He immediately walked towards Li Ji. Li Ji's face revealed a hint of panic. Although she and Chu Mo were both at Black Star level 3, if they really fought, she was not Chu Mo's match. Moreover, once they were defeated by Chu Mo, their caves would be swapped. Li Ji hurriedly called out in a coquettish voice, "Lord Hu, Chu Mo, that ugly freak, is bullying me again. Quickly come out and help me vent my anger." Following Li Ji's shout, Lord Hu walked out from the cave. He said disdainfully, "Fat woman, are you looking for trouble again? If you don't know your place, I will kill you." Chu Mo clenched her fists. She was still not Lord Hu's match. If they really fought, she would definitely lose. Seeing this, Yun Chujiu walked up to Chu Mo and tugged at her sleeve. "Sister Mo, didn't you say it was time to work? Let's go, or it'll be too late." Chu Mo knew that Yun Chujiu was helping her out, so he turned around and walked towards Yun Chujiu. When Lord Hu saw Yun Chujiu, his eyes immediately lit up. He wanted to go forward and say something, but Li Ji found an excuse to coax him back into the cave. Li Ji sneered in her heart. A new little girl still wanted to snatch her man?
Dream on.
She could be killed with just a simple trick. Yun Chujo saw that Chumo's expression was not very good, so she carefully said, Sister Amo, there's no need to be angry with that kind of person. Oh, right. Well, become drifters once we leave this stone room. How are we going to take care of those cabbages? Chumo's expression eased up a little and said, there's a secret art that can temporarily maintain a certain amount of time after using it. The length of time depends on your cultivation base. It'll teach you the mnemonic chant now. I reckon that you don't have a cultivation base now, so you can only maintain it for a very short time. Chapter 4490. Taking care of Chinese cabbages. Yun Chujo suddenly understood. She had said that if the evil spirit did not have a physical body, how could it plant so many Chinese cabbages? Sister Mo, then where did you get the seeds of Chinese cabbages? Yun Chujo asked curiously. Weren't there some people who had designs on soul-gathering beads before? After we killed them, we found them in their storage rings, Chu Mo explained. These cabbages were different from the ones Yun Chujo had seen in other continents. They were common cabbages in the ghost region, so it was normal to find a few seeds in those people's storage rings. Then Chu Mo told Yun Chujo the method to condense a physical body for the time being. As soon as Chu Mo finished the chant, a man shouted, What are you all standing there for? Hurry up and get to work. Yun Chujo turned around and saw a square-faced, middle-aged man with a whip in his hand. Chu Mo dragged Yun Chujo towards the tunnel. He lowered his voice and said, This is Luan Xiong, who is in charge of the 18th floor. If you fail to complete the mission, you will be whipped. But don't worry, I will help you complete your mission. Yun Chujo naturally thanked him profusely. However, she was very puzzled in her heart. What did he mean by taking care of the cabbages? She saw that the cabbages were very beautiful. How else would they need to be taken care of? The people on the 18th floor flew into the tunnel. Naturally, they would not waste their short physical time on the journey. Yun Chujo followed Chu Mo and floated to the end of the tunnel. Chu Mo was obviously ostracized. She was arranged to take care of the 5 cabbages at the end of the tunnel. Yun Chujo, the new doormat, was arranged to sit beside Chu Mo. Yun Chujo saw that their arranged position was very close to the exit. She could not help but stretch her neck to look outside. She wanted to see if Di Biming and AOG were nearby. However, she was stunned to find that there was a layer of enchantment not far from them. It was really strange. Why didn't they find this enchantment when they came in earlier? Chu Mo seemed to have noticed her doubt. She lowered her voice and said, When you came in earlier, it was probably Lord Tiger who removed the barrier, so you guessed that you came in unimpeded. Yun Chujo nodded and retracted her gaze. She looked at the 10 dainty Chinese cabbages. To be honest, if it wasn't for his strong willpower, he would have already pounced on them and nibbled on them. This fellow was usually unhappy without meat. He never imagined that the cabbage that he usually despised would actually look so delicious now. This fellow swallowed his saliva. Big Sister Mo, how are you going to take care of these cabbages? I reckon that you won't be able to condense a physical body for long. Don't waste your soul power. Just watch from the side. After saying that, Chu Mo condensed a physical body. After that, she formed a seal with both hands. A faint halo appeared on her hands as she carefully stopped above a cabbage. Yun Chujo was surprised to discover that the cabbage that was illuminated by the halo had actually grown at a speed visible to the naked eye. Furthermore, it looked even more dainty. Yun Chujo guessed that the halo should be soul power. These cabbage were actually nourished by soul power? What a reckless waste of natural resources. However, it was also true. The interior of the tunnel was very dark. Although there were some illuminating beads placed on the ceiling of the cave, they couldn't be compared to the sunlight. If it wasn't for the special methods used to take care of it, it wouldn't be able to grow so dainty. Taking care of these cabbages clearly consumed a lot of soul power. By the time Chu Mo finished all 10 cabbages, her face had turned extremely pale. This was because Chu Mo's cultivation base had already reached the black rank 3-star. Some people had even collapsed onto the ground, panting heavily. On one hand, Yun Chujo was extremely grateful to Chu Mo. On the other hand, she thought of a very crucial problem. These cabbages couldn't possibly continue to grow like this, right? What if they matured? Would she just let them rot in the ground? If that was the case, it would be too wasteful. She might as well let her eat them. Chapter 4491. Cleaning the statue. Yin Chujio explained her question, and Chu Emo smiled. How can they be allowed to rot in the ground? After these cabbages mature, apart from being used to worship the ghost ancestor, they also need to be used to worship the soul-gathering pearl. Yun Chujio was stunned. What was that? Used to worship the soul-gathering pearl? It was understandable to worship the ghost ancestor, but what did it mean to worship the soul-gathering pearl? Yun Chujio wanted to ask more questions, but Wan Xiong, who was in charge of managing the 18th floor, urged everyone to return to the stone room as soon as possible. Yun Chujio could only swallow her questions back into her stomach and prepared to ask more questions when she returned to the cave. When this fellow passed by those dainty cabbages, it was simply torturous. If only she could hug a cabbages and take a few bites now. There were so many cabbages in front of her, but she did not cherish them. If she was given another chance, she would definitely eat enough. He Xinjiu floated back to the stone room with difficulty. She was about to climb the stone stairs when she heard Luan Xiong say, "That newcomer, clean the statue of the ghost ancestor properly. If you don't clean it properly, humph." Chu Mo was about to stay and help when Luan Xiong said coldly, "Chu Mo, it's fine if you helped her to take care of the cabbage just now. If you meddle in other people's business again, you don't have to go to the opening of the soul-gathering pearl this time." Hearing that, Yun Chujio hurriedly said to Chu Mo, "Sister Mo, you go back first. I'll do it myself." Chu Mo had no choice but to remind her, "You must be careful when you clean it. Don't damage the statue, or you'll be severely punished." "Got it. I will be careful." Chu Mo glanced at Yun Chujio worriedly, then used the levitation spell to return to the cave. Wan Xiong asked someone to pass Yun Chujio the tools to wipe the statue, then turned around and left. The rest of the people gloated over Yun Chujio's misfortune and left as well. Yun Chujio looked at the water basins and rags, wondering if these things were also obtained from the people who entered the cave. However, where did this water come from? Yun Chujio felt that there were many questions in the cave of 10,000 ghosts, but her thoughts were quickly distracted by the cabbages on the table. The juicy cabbages were now very attractive to the hungry He Xinjiu. This guy had an idea. This guy took the rags and began to wipe the table. However, under the cover of his body and the statue, this guy grabbed a small piece of cabbages and stuffed it into his mouth. The clear and sweet juice instantly filled his mouth, and He Xinjiu almost cried with happiness. It was too damn delicious. This was not cabbage, it was obviously nectar. However, this small piece of cabbage leaf completely aroused He Xinjiu's craving. This guy thought that he would not stop until he was done. Anyway, this cabbage was different from other vegetables, so no one would be able to tell if he broke off a few leaves. Therefore, like an ant moving house, she quickly ate 3 pieces of cabbage leaf. Just as she was about to continue eating, she saw Wan Xiong walking over. She quickly wiped her mouth with her sleeve and continued to wipe the sacrificial table. Wan Xiong walked up to her and frowned. "Are you stupid? Why do you keep wiping the sacrificial table? Why don't you wipe the statue?" "Master, I don't know how to control the air, and the statue of the ghost ancestor is very tall. I don't know what to do," Yun Chujio said hesitantly. Wan Xiong said with a fake smile, "You have to think of a way yourself. However, if you can stay with me for one night, I can get someone to help you do it." Chapter 4492. The Art of Controlling the Air. Yun Chujio cursed in her heart. Damn it! Why were there so many lecherous people in the den of 10,000 ghosts? Was the ghost ancestor blind back then? How did he save these bastards? Although this fellow was cursing in his heart, he said on the surface, "Thank you for your kind intentions, sir. I'll think of a way myself." Wan Xiong said with some exasperation, "HMPH. Since you're asking for it, I won't stop you. If you don't wipe the statue clean, don't go back to sleep today. Wan Xiong left angrily after saying that. Yun Chujio heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. If she didn't sleep, she wouldn't sleep. As long as there were cabbages to eat, it was better than anything else. This fellow began to slowly clean the bottom of the statue. When he found a gap, he would secretly eat the cabbages. Very quickly, the cabbages became smaller. This fellow wasn't worried at all. Anyway, if one didn't look carefully, no one would notice that the cabbages had shrunk. Moreover, the people here didn't need to eat, so naturally no one suspected that she had eaten it secretly. Although this fellow had eaten more than 10 pieces of cabbage, she was only half full. However, she was afraid that others would notice the abnormality of the cabbage, so she could only swallow her saliva and stop eating secretly. Now, the question was, how should she wipe the middle and upper parts of the statue? Just as she was worrying, Master, who walked over with Fongbu, followed by the gloomy-looking Li Ji. Little Drifter, what's wrong? Are you worried that you don't have a way to wipe the statue? Why don't you agree to dual cultivate with me, and I'll get Li Ji to help you wipe it? Master, who stared at Yun Chujia's face, which seemed to have become more beautiful. Li Ji was furious. However, she did not dare to refute Lord Hu. Instead, she stared at Yun Chujio as if her eyes were poisoned. Yun Chujio laughed lightly. Lord Hu, thank you for your kind intentions. I'll do it myself. Lord Hu curled his lips. You'll do it yourself? There's no ladder here. Unless you learn the air controlling technique, you won't be able to clean the statue. If you don't complete the mission, you won't even be able to return to the cave, much less the opportunity to participate in the opening of the soul-gathering pearl. You have to think carefully. Yun Chujio chuckled again. Master Hu, then I'll learn the air-controlling technique first before wiping the statue. Before Master Hu could say anything, Li Ji sneered. Aren't you afraid that the wind will hurt your tongue? You probably don't know, right? Only people who have reached the 2nd star of Black rank can use the air-controlling technique. Based on your talent as a good-for-nothing, I'm afraid that you won't be able to reach the 2nd star of Black rank for decades or even hundreds of years. Just wait to be punished. Master Hu, since she doesn't know how to appreciate favors, why should you bother with her? After she has suffered, she will naturally go and beg you. Master Hu thought that it made sense. He snorted coldly and turned around to leave. Li Ji looked at Yun Chujio proudly. Then, she twisted her waist and caught up with Master Hu. She held his arm and left while chatting and laughing. He Xinjiu was really worried now. If she couldn't use the air-controlling spell, how could she wipe the statue of the ghost ancestor? Her eyes lit up at the thought. She was really stupid. Although she couldn't fly, she could tie a rag to a stick. She waved at Chu Mo, who was looking up, and Chu Mo immediately floated down. Sister Mo, do you know where there is a longer stick? I want to tie the rag to it and use it to wipe the statue of the ghost ancestor. Chu Mo was stunned and then smiled bitterly. Little Jiao, this method of yours is quite good, but where are the wooden sticks here? Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. Sister Mo, this isn't difficult. You can go up and tear down my wooden door and tie it together with wooden sticks. Chu Mo. Chapter 4493. The ghost ancestor statue's ear fell off in the end. Chu Mo still followed Yun Chujia's instructions and flew up to tear down Yun Chujia's wooden door. Then, she tied it into a wooden stick. He Xinjiu tied a rag to it and began to wipe the ghost ancestor statue. This fellow felt that she was really too smart. So, what if she didn't know how to control the air? Didn't she still come up with a good idea? This fellow couldn't help but hum a little tune as she rubbed against it. However, at this moment, clang, the left ear of the statue of the ghost ancestor fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. He Xinjia's head buzzed. Even if she used her heel to think, she knew that she had been framed. Otherwise, why would the statue's ear fall off when she didn't use any strength? The sound of the statue's ear falling to the ground immediately woke many people up. Yun Chujio smiled bitterly. The statue's ear fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. Even if she wanted to find any clues, It was impossible. Oh my, what happened? You bitch. You actually destroyed the ghost ancestor's statue. You're trying to make all of us unlucky. Li Ji shouted sharply. Yun Chuzhou immediately understood that Li Ji was most likely the mastermind behind this. Even if she didn't do it directly, she had to be involved. Yun Chuzhou glanced at Li Ji, who was gloating. Li Ji was scared by her glance and took a few steps back. You bitch. You made a big mistake, and you still dare to glare at me? Just wait to be punished. Li Ji said angrily. Yun Chuzhou knew that it was useless to say anything now. She could only see what the so-called punishment was, and then make further plans. The people in the cave stood on the corridors of each floor and looked down. Other than Lord Hu and Luan Xiong, no one else came out of the cave on the first floor. Lord Hu rolled his eyes. Little drifter, I'm the only one who can save you now. As long as you agree to dual cultivate with me, I'll let Luan Xiong get rid of your punishment. Otherwise, TSK, you'll have to move the mature cabbages into the soul-gathering cave. You should know that although the soul-gathering cave is usually a paradise when it's open, it's usually a purgatory. Even if you don't die, you'll have to peel off a layer of skin. Yun Chuzhou's attention was instantly attracted by the words, move the cabbages. A thought flashed through this fellow's mind. Finally, he could have a good meal of cabbages. Lord Hu thought that Yun Chuzhou would show a frightened and uneasy expression after she finished talking, but he didn't expect that Yun Chuzhou's expression didn't change. If he looked carefully, there seemed to be a trace of joy. This little punk must be stupid, right? Lord Hu thought that Yun Chuzhou didn't realize the seriousness of the matter, so he raised his voice and said, Don't think that it's just transporting a few cabbages. The mature cabbages in these tunnels have to be transported to the soul-gathering cave. Moreover, we can't use the storage ring, so you can only rely on manpower to transport them. Lord Hu was talking a lot, but Yun Chuzhou's attention was all on the cabbages. It would be better if they were all transported. Only then would she be able to eat enough. She couldn't use the storage ring? Then how did she get the cabbages from those people's storage rings? However, He Xinzhou thought that it was simple. These evil spirits must have forced those people to hand over the things in their storage rings before they killed those people. Lord Hu saw that Yun Chuzhou was still acting like she was out of this world, and he was so angry that he gritted his teeth. Li Ji fanned the flames by the side again. He snorted coldly and left with a flick of his sleeves. Chapter 4494 Moving Cabbages. Li Ji gave Luan Xiong a veiled glance before following Lord Hu away. Luan Xiong saw Yun Chuzhou's stunned expression and thought that she was scared silly. He smiled sinisterly and said, Do you choose to move cabbages or... Without waiting for Luan Xiong to finish speaking, Yun Chuzhou said crisply, I choose to move cabbages. Luan Xiong was furious. He snorted, Since you want to die, then I'll fulfill your wish. Those on the 18th floor, get down here and pluck all the mature cabbages. The evil spirits on the 18th floor did not dare to disobey, so they could only come down again to pluck the cabbages. Of course, these people would definitely vent their anger on Yun Chuzhou. If she did not make a mistake, they could pluck the cabbages again tomorrow morning. There was no need to go through all the trouble again. Chu Emo looked at Yun Chuzhou worriedly. It was just that her ability was limited and she couldn't help. She had also carried cabbages with the people on the 18th floor. Because there were so many people, each person only needed to carry them once. Even so, every time they came back from the Soul Gathering Cave, they had to take 2 days off. This was because she was already a 3-star black rank. The other people took longer to carry cabbages, and some with low cultivation would even lose their lives. Little Jiao didn't have any cultivation at all, and her body was weak. She would probably lose half of her life even if she went there, not to mention moving all the cabbages. Yun Chuzhou's expression was normal. She was so happy in her heart, and her mind was filled with cabbages. Cabbages were good, and cabbages were amazing. After a full 2 hours, those people only managed to pluck a few hundred cabbages. This was mainly because the time it took for them to materialize was very short. Often, They would turn into drifters halfway through the pluck and could only pluck after a period of time. Wan Xiong pointed at a cave and said, "Do you see it? That's the soul-gathering cave. It's not too late for you to regret it now." Before Wan Xiong could finish a sentence, Yin Chuzhou rushed into the cave with a few cabbages in her arms. Wan Xiong was so angry that he almost died. This bitch seemed to be willing to die rather than submit to him. Then she should just die. He was certain that Yun Chuzhou would die without a doubt after 3 cabbages were transported. He decided to stand here and wait. He reckoned that she would know how powerful the soul-gathering cave was after 1 round of transporting cabbages. Then, she would obediently submit. On the other side, He Xinjiu carried a few cabbages into the so-called soul-gathering cave. At the beginning, it was a narrow tunnel. This guy walked in slowly, and the aroma of the cabbages kept drilling into her nose. This guy thought to himself, "Damn it, since I've made a mistake, I might as well add another one." Therefore, after walking for a while, this guy sat on the ground and started to eat the cabbages. He didn't know if it was because he had been hungry for too long or because the cabbage here was too delicious, but this guy soon ate all the cabbage. This guy burped, wiped his mouth, and left the cave. Wan Xiong saw Yin Chuzhou jumping out alive, and his eyeballs almost fell out. How could this be? Even if he entered the soul-gathering cave at this time, he would be injured. How could she be fine? Did you send the cabbage to the place? Did you throw the cabbage into the tunnel? Wan Xiong frowned and asked. Yun Chuzhou looked innocent. Of course I sent it to the place. Why don't you go in and take a look? Wan Xiong entered the corridor with doubt. When he saw that there were no cabbage in the corridor, he believed that Yun Chuzhou really sent the cabbage to the soul-gathering cave. How would he know that the cabbages had all gone into someone's stomach? Chapter 4495 Soul-Gathering Cave. Wan Xiong only swept his gaze across the corridor and did not enter the soul-gathering cave in front to take a look. He was not stupid. He would be injured after entering once. There was no need for him to go in and take a look. Cheating Zhou had also calculated this point. Hence, he did not look guilty at all. Wan Xiong pondered for a moment and felt that it was 80% likely that this new drifter's soul power was too low. Therefore, the injuries he suffered were also small. However, he reckoned that entering again would not be so easy. Seeing that Wan Xiong had come out without saying anything, Yun Chuzhou hugged a few large cabbages and happily entered the cave once again. However, this time Wan Xiong stood at the entrance of the cave to watch, so she couldn't continue to steal food. She could only bite the bullet and continue walking forward. After walking for a long distance, a barrier appeared in front of her. This fellow was thinking, how do I open this thing? However, Wan Xiong was watching at the entrance of the cave, so she could only pretend to walk over naturally. Fortunately, she didn't encounter any obstacles and directly walked in. This enchantment could probably only block normal humans, and a drifter like her could enter and leave as she pleased. He Xinjiu recalled what Master Hu had said before. He said that this soul-gathering cave was a purgatory where one would be stripped of their skin upon entering. What was so scary about this place? Yun Chuzhou hugged the cabbage and looked around. This was a very spacious cave. It was not even smaller than the stone room before, but it was empty. There were only a dozen or so cabbages placed on the stone platform in the middle. Yun Chuzhou thought for a moment and guessed that the cabbages in her hand should be placed there as well. Hence, she walked over and placed the few cabbages in her hand on the stone platform as well. This guy circled around the stone platform a few times, but he still did not feel anything wrong. What purgatory? What life is worse than death? What skin is peeled off? Are you talking nonsense? However, this guy thought for a moment. If he left so quickly, there was an 80% chance that Wan Xiong would be suspicious. Then he would just eat another cabbages. Therefore, he sat on the stone platform and began to eat a cabbage. He cursed in his heart. Although the cabbage was delicious, it was only edible. The meat was still delicious. However, he had no other choice but to eat it. Nothing unusual happened until Yun Chuzhou finished eating a cabbage. This guy was afraid of being suspected, So he started to run in the cave. After running a few rounds, he sweated a little and messed up his hair a little. Then he left the soul-gathering cave. Wan Xiong was a little impatient waiting outside. He thought to himself, did that little punk die in the soul-gathering cave? If she really died in the cave, it would be a pity. After all, her appearance was definitely the first one in the cave of 10,000 ghosts. Just as Wan Xiong was thinking about it, he saw Yun Chujia's head was covered in sweat, and her hair was messy. Wan Xiong saw that Yun Chujia's footsteps were very staggering, and the corner of his mouth revealed a trace of pride. He said with a fake smile, "Now you know how powerful the soul-gathering cave is, right? If you are willing to agree to me now, I will arrange for someone else to transport the remaining cabbages." Yun Chujio did not say anything. She picked up a few cabbages and staggered into the cave. Wan Xiong was so angry that he was twitching. He decided not to keep an eye on her anymore. Anyway, if she could not hold on any longer, she would naturally go and beg him. After Yun Chujio entered the soul-gathering cave, she placed the cabbages on the stone platform and yawned a few times in succession. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, she slept again. It was simply wonderful. Hence, this guy found a corner and sat on the ground. He leaned against the wall and fell asleep just like that. Chapter 4496 Soul-Extinguishing Baleful Wind. Shu Mo waited outside for a long time, but Yun Chujio still didn't come out. Her heart sank. Could it be that little Joe died inside? She was running around anxiously. She found Wan Xiong and pleaded, "Sir, little Joe hasn't come out for a long time. Could she faint inside? Can I go in and take a look?" Wan Xiong rolled his eyes. If that little girl was seriously injured and brought out, wouldn't she be at his mercy? Thus, he nodded his head. "Then you should go in and take a look." Shu Mo immediately rushed into the tunnel and entered the soul-gathering cave after passing through the barrier. Almost as soon as she entered the soul-gathering cave, a gust of baleful wind blew in the cave. The black baleful wind was as sharp as a blade. Shu Mo could only use her soul power to barely form a protective barrier. However, the protective barrier was broken by the gust of wind in an instant, and her body was quickly cut open. When she saw that the cave was empty, she was shocked. Where did little Joe go? However, when her gaze swept past a corner and found a person lying there, her heart sank. "It's over, little Joe is definitely dead." She sighed in her heart. No matter what, even if it was a corpse, she could not leave it here. Thus, she walked in front of He Xinjiu. Shu Mo was suddenly stunned. That was because, to her bewilderment, she discovered that not a single gust of evil wind blew on Yun Chujia's body. There wasn't even a single gust of evil wind in a small area, with Yun Chujio as the center. Could it be that because little Joe was dead, the evil wind didn't attack her anymore? The more Shu Mo thought about it, the more she felt that this was the case. Therefore, she sobbed and said, "Little Joe, you and I are sisters. I'll bring you out and bury you in peace." After saying that, Shu Mo was about to carry He Xinjiu out, but He Xinjiu mumbled, "Cabbage, delicious, another one." Shu Mo was so scared that she almost sat on the ground. Was she dead? She was about to use her finger to check Yun Chujia's breathing, but Yun Chujio woke up. She looked at Shu Mo in confusion, and then looked at the evil wind in the cave. She was a little confused. After Shu Mo was shocked, she said in surprise, "Little Joe, you're not dead." "Yun Chujio, didn't she just take a nap? How did she die?" "Sister Mo, why did you come in? And what the hell are those things?" Yun Chujio pointed at the evil wind and asked, "Little Joe, it's good that you're okay. I saw that you hadn't gone out for a long time and thought that something had happened to you, so I came in to take a look. Those are soul-extinguishing banes. They hurt people like us the most. That's why every time we bring in cabbages, we have to peel off a layer of their skin. Those with weaker cultivations might even lose their lives," Shu Mo explained. Soul-extinguishing banes? Yun Chujio was puzzled. When she came in before, there was no such thing. Sister Emo, those soul-extinguishing banes didn't attack us. What's there to be afraid of? Yun Chujo asked in confusion. Chu Emo, are you blind? Can't you see that there are many cuts on her body? However, that's true. Ever since she got close to little Gio, those soul-extinguishing baleful winds really didn't attack her. What's going on? In order to verify her guess, Chu Emo took a few steps back. Those soul-extinguishing baleful winds immediately began to attack her again. She quickly got closer to Yun Chujo. Yun Chujo also noticed this and said hesitantly, could it be that the corner we're in is a bit special? So the soul-extinguishing evil winds won't attack us? Chapter 4497 Not attack her? Chu Emo thought that it was possible, so she said, then I'll protect you. You can try somewhere else. Then, Chu Emo was stunned to find that as Yun Chujo moved, the soul-extinguishing evil winds took the initiative to avoid her. Wherever Yun Chujo was, there was nothing within 5 feet of her. Yun Chujo puzzledly looked at Chu Emo. Emo, elder sister, you're not playing with me? These soul-extinguishing evil winds are very friendly? Won't attack people at all. Chu Emo, you are blind. Chu Emo, in order to prove to Yun Chujo back a few steps, those evil wind immediately began to attack her crazily. She quickly retreated to Yun Chujo's side. Yun Chujo's eyes widened. It seemed that it was not that the soul-destroying evil winds did not attack people, but that they did not attack her? Could it be that she was now so beautiful that the soul-destroying evil winds could not bear to hurt her? This kind of narcissistic thought was just a thought. She looked around and realized that the soul-destroying evil winds did not attack the cabbage on the stone platform. Sister Emo, every time you move the cabbages, will the soul-extinguishing winds damage the cabbages? Chu Emo was dazed for a moment before she shook her head. Not really. The soul-extinguishing winds will avoid the cabbages. Hei Shinjo pondered for a moment. Could it be that the soul-extinguishing winds did not attack her because she had eaten a lot of cabbages? Therefore, the guy brought Chu Emo to the stone platform, broke a piece of cabbages, and said, Sister Emo, try it. The cabbages are delicious. Chu Emo was so scared that she almost fainted. Little Joe, are you crazy? If people find out about this, you will lose your life. Yun Chujo shrugged her shoulders. Can't you just keep it a secret? Try it, it's really delicious. Moreover, I think it's because I ate this cabbage that the soul-extinguishing evil wind didn't attack me. Chu Emo was skeptical, but seeing Yun Chujo's sincere expression, she could only take it. As she hadn't eaten anything for so many years, Chu Emo felt uncomfortable after eating a little, and she couldn't eat anymore. Yun Chujo took the remaining cabbage from her hand and ate it all in a few mouthfuls. As she ate, she said, Sister Emo, try it this time. The soul-extinguishing baleful wind definitely won't attack you. Upon hearing this, Chu Emo immediately took a few steps back. Those soul-extinguishing evil winds immediately charged at her, and they were even fiercer than before. She did not know if it was Chu Mo's misconception, but she had a feeling that those soul-extinguishing evil winds were somewhat exasperated. Could it be because she had secretly eaten cabbage leaves? Chu Emo hurriedly retreated to Yun Chujo's side, and only then did she heave a sigh of relief. Yun Chujo touched her nose. Well, Sister Emo, it's most likely because you ate too little. Why don't you try eating a cabbage? Chu Emo thought to herself, if I believe you, I'll be a ghost. It's not about whether I eat cabbage or not. It's really strange. Why won't these soul-extinguishing baleful winds attack little Gio? Could it be because little Gio is good-looking? The two of them stared at each other. No one knew what was going on. Hei Xinjia's appetite was aroused by the half-piece of cabbage. She simply hugged a cabbage and said while chewing, Who cares what's going on? It's a good thing that they don't attack me. Speaking of which, this soul-gathering cave is much more spacious than my cave. Moreover, these soul-extinguishing baleful winds are standing guard for me. It's much safer. In the future, I'll make some mistakes whenever I have nothing to do. This way, I'll be punished to transport cabbages. There'll be a place to eat and sleep. How nice. Chu Mo. Chapter 4498's soul power suddenly decreased after a moment of silence. Chu Mo said hesitantly, "Little Jiu, although I don't know why those soul-extinguishing evil winds didn't attack you, it's best not to let others know about this matter. Otherwise, I'm afraid." Yun Chuju nodded. "I ate quite a lot of cabbages this time. I reckon I can last for a few days. I'll get into trouble again in the future." Chu Mo. She looked at He Xinjiu, who was chewing very sweetly, and the corner of her eyes twitched. Although she did not have any memories of the past, this cabbage should not be considered a delicious thing, right? Why did she look like little Jiu was eating so well? Yun Chujo quickly finished off a cabbage. She wiped her mouth and said, "Sister Mo, in order to avoid being suspected, you can carry me out later." Chu Mo, are you sure that you are not suffering from laziness? In the end, Chu Mo carried He Xinjiu out of the soul-gathering cave, whose hair was disheveled and her face was covered in blood. Of course, the blood was smeared on Chu Mo's wound by He Xinjiu. Wan Xiong wanted to bring He Xinjiu back to his cave when he saw the two of them coming out, but he lost interest when he saw her messy appearance. He asked the other people on the 18th floor to carry the remaining cabbage into the soul-gathering cave. He Xinjiu pretended to slow down for a while before she struggled to climb the stone stairs and return to the cave. He did not know if it was an illusion, but this fellow felt that after eating the cabbages, his waist was no longer sore and his legs no longer hurt. He could climb up to the 18th floor in one go. When this fellow saw his bare cave entrance, he immediately asked Chu Mo to help him unload the other cave doors and install them at his cave entrance. After Chu Mo left, Yun Chujo began to absorb the soul power according to the cultivation method Chu Mo had taught her. The reason why this guy was so diligent was because she realized that Di Biming and Aog clearly had no way to enter the soul-gathering cave. In that case, she could only rely on herself. If she wanted to obtain the soul-gathering pearl, she definitely wouldn't be able to do it with her current useless appearance. At the very least, she should learn how to control the air. Unfortunately, this fellow's thoughts were pretty good. He had just successfully lured his soul into his body when he fell asleep. Just as this fellow was sleeping soundly, he heard a commotion outside. This fellow opened his eyes impatiently. Why was it so difficult to sleep? What happened again? When this fellow walked out of the cave, he heard a series of clamors. What the fuck? What's going on? Why did the soul power suddenly become so thin? I can't even feel the soul power. Yeah, I've been cultivating for half a day and only managed to absorb a tiny bit of soul power. What the hell? Where did the soul power go? Yun Chujiu was confused and asked Chu Mo, who had just come out, "Sister Mo, what do they mean?" Chu Mo frowned. "You might not have felt it when you were cultivating just now, but for some reason, the soul power in this stone room had decreased by a lot, even less than 1/10 of what it used to be." Yun Chujiu only understood a little and mumbled, "There's an 80% chance that the soul-gathering pearl is eating cabbage, so it's slacking off." Chu Mo was speechless. "Did you think that everyone was a foodie like you?" Right at this moment, a sharp female voice said, "I think that this must be because that new girl, little Jiu, has removed Buddha's ear, which is why such a thing has happened. She's a jinx. If we kill her and sacrifice her to the ghost ancestor, her soul power will return to normal." Yun Chujiu stretched her neck to take a look. The one who spoke was Li Ji. She cursed in her heart. This coquettish slut is really courting death. Chapter 4499. Locked in the soul-gathering cave, Li Ji's words immediately resonated with the others. The reason was very simple. Normally, everything was normal, but why was it abnormal today? It must have something to do with the destruction of the ghost ancestor statue. Because of the seriousness of the matter, the people on the first floor of the cave also came out. The person in the lead was a square-faced old man. Lord Hu and Luan Xiong both went up, obviously following the old man's lead. The old man's gaze swept across the statue of the ghost ancestor. which was missing an ear, and said gloomily, Li Ji is right. Lock that new little Jiao in the soul-gathering cave. Treat it as a sacrifice to the ghost ancestor. Chu Mo, who was originally worried, was speechless sacrifice. What was the difference between this and a mouse falling into a bag of rice? She lowered her voice and said, There are still 3 days before the opening of the soul-gathering pearl. Think of a way to escape these few days. Otherwise, when they find out that you're not dead, I'm afraid they won't let it go. Yun Chuju nodded. Sister Amo, hurry up and tell me the mnemonic formula of the air manipulation technique. Although Chu Mo wanted to say that with Yun Chujia's current cultivation base, it would be useless even if she learned it, she still told her the mnemonic formula. After Yun Chujio memorized it, she climbed down the stone stairs under the stern berating of Wan Xiong and the others. She did not explain and obediently walked into the soul-gathering cave. Coincidentally, at this moment, her soul power had returned to normal. Everyone felt that it was extremely correct to sacrifice Yun Chujio to the ghost ancestor. Only Chu Mo was extremely worried for Yun Chujio. After He Xinjiu entered the soul-gathering cave, she discovered that there were many cabbages placed on the stone platform. It was likely that those people had just moved them in. However, she did not discover the shadow of the soul-extinguishing baleful wind. She yawned. Her sleep was intermittent, and she did not sleep well. It was better to sleep first. When she was about to go to the corner to sleep, she found that the stone platform with cabbages was not bad. This guy simply moved the cabbages to the side and lay down on it to sleep. This guy comforted himself before he went to sleep. It was not her fault for being a snooze. In the past month, Di Baiming and AOG had tried every means to prevent her from sleeping. They were so sleepy. While He Xinjiu was sleeping soundly, but Face's sobbing voice sounded in her mind. Little fairy, help. If you don't come and save me, you will only see a dead dog. Yun Chujio was startled awake and sat up immediately. She wiped the cold sweat on her forehead. Where exactly were Buttface and the others trapped? Logically speaking, a perverted thing like the big brick should not be easily tricked. Who was the mastermind behind this? No matter what, it was still important to get the soul-gathering pearl first. However, if those people found out that she was not dead 3 days later, they would probably not be kind. How could she hide it from the world? Yun Chujio thought for a long time, but she could not think of a good idea. Instead, her stomach started to growl. This fellow could only eat cabbage and think of a way. She stood up and knocked on the stone walls around her. She found that they were all solid. Obviously, there was no hidden room or other mechanism. She did not know where the 5 giant soul pearls were hidden, and why did they only appear after a period of time. Although Yun Chujio did not know the exact time, as time passed, she became more and more anxious. Where should she hide them? When her gaze accidentally swept across the stone platform, her eyes lit up. The stone platform was a distance higher than the surrounding ground. If she could hide it inside, it would be foolproof. So the question was, how could it be hidden inside? Chapter 4500. The Art of Levitation. He Xinjiu knocked on the stone platform and was surprised to find that the bottom of the stone platform was empty. How could it be empty? Could it be a vegetable cellar? This fellow tried a few directions and actually pushed the stone platform. This fellow's little heart was thumping like a rabbit. He was about to discover the secret. However, this fellow was soon disappointed. She discovered that there wasn't any secret room or entrance under the stone platform, but a formation disc. This fellow was stunned for a moment, then slapped her thigh. She knew what kind of formation disc this was. According to Chu Mo, these cabbages would be reduced by a portion on a regular basis, so this must be a teleportation array. It was just that she did not know where the cabbages were sent to. Could it be that they were really eaten by those 5 soul-gathering pearls? Logically speaking, even if they had turned into spirits, they should not be eating. Where exactly were those cabbages sent to? This fellow did not have the time to think about where the cabbages were. This fellow discovered that the groove where the yuan stones were placed on the formation plate was very big, so this fellow pulled the yuan stones aside and lay down inside. It was just right. However, if the stone platform on top was covered, wouldn't she suffocate to death inside? She did not have any tools on hand. Otherwise, she could have made a few holes on the side of the stone platform. This fellow sighed and looked at the stone platform. This thing was very hard. Could it be that she had to gnaw on it with her teeth? This fellow blinked her eyes and finally thought of an idea. She placed the stone platform on the ground and began to rub it. This fellow simply felt that she was too smart. As she rubbed it, she hummed a little tune. Rub, rub, rub on this smooth ground. Rub, rub, like the footsteps of a devil. He didn't know if it was because he had eaten too many cabbages, but he didn't feel the least bit tired as he moved the 10-foot-long stone platform. He felt as if he had an endless amount of strength in his body. He didn't dare to make the gap too big. When he felt that it was enough, he stopped. After solving a major problem, he finally felt a little more at ease, so he began to eat cabbages. This fellow felt that he was most likely going to become a dahua. Otherwise, why would he always be hungry? After eating a few large cabbages, Hei Xinjiu began to cultivate her soul power. What Hei Xinjiu didn't know was that the people outside were all in an uproar. There was no other reason, but for some inexplicable reason, her soul power had actually decreased again. Elder June, we've already worshipped that new drifter to the ghost ancestor, so why did our soul power decrease again? Could it be that it wasn't because the ghost ancestor statue was destroyed? Lord Hu said to the square-faced old man. He was rather regretful in his heart. If he had known earlier that it wasn't because of that little drifter, he wouldn't have locked her in the soul-gathering cave. What a pity. The square-faced old man frowned. Tomorrow is the opening time of the soul-gathering pearl. Well, see how things go first. Hu, don't let strangers into the cave again in the future. Lord Hu's expression stiffened. He knew that Elder June was blaming him for taking in Yun Chujiu, so he replied with an embarrassed expression. After a while, the soul power returned to normal, and everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Hei Xinjiu cultivated her soul power for a while, then began to try the airbending technique. To be honest, this fellow didn't have much confidence. After all, Li Ji had once said that only 2-star black rank people could use the airbending technique. She had only cultivated it for a few days, so she reckoned that it wouldn't succeed. However, once this fellow used Chu Mo's method, his entire body rose from the ground. With a bang, his head hit the ceiling of the cave, nearly knocking this fellow unconscious. Fuck, didn't we agree that only 2-star black rank people could use airbending? Chapter 45:01 hit a big bump on the head. As Hei Xinjiu was not familiar with the flying technique, she hit a big bump on the head very quickly. This fellow touched the big bump on the head and smiled. Did this mean that she had only cultivated for a few days and reached the 2nd star of black rank? With this kind of cultivation speed, she would soon be able to torture these evil spirit dregs. This fellow moved closer to the stone platform and took a look. She stared at it for quite a while and realized that there was nothing between her eyebrows. There were not 2 black moles as she had thought. Could it be that she hadn't reached the 2nd star of the black rank? Just as the fellow was thinking, a dazzling white light flashed across the stone platform. When she regained her sight, she realized that the cabbages on the stone platform had decreased by a lot. It seemed that her guess was right. The array below was indeed a teleportation array. However, she didn't know if the evil spirits knew about the existence of this teleportation array, or where the cabbages had been teleported to. This fellow could not help but feel a little regretful. She should have learned more spells from Chu Mo previously. Now, other than the airbending technique, she did not know anything else. Otherwise, she could have blended in with the cabbages to investigate. Hei Xinjiu estimated that it was almost time. She drilled into the groove of the array formation plate and fastened the stone platform on it. There was only a narrow gap that could be used for ventilation. Hei Xinjiu heard the messy footsteps in a daze. She thought that it was time for the so-called soul-gathering pearl to open. As the gap was on the side, this guy's vision was limited. He could only see a few people's shoes and legs, not even their faces. This guy decided not to look at it and lay in the groove to listen to the sound. She heard the square-faced old man mumble a few words, asking for the ghost ancestor's blessing and thanking the ghost ancestor. Then, Hei Shinjo saw a white light through the gap, and the white light did not disappear. Yun Chujio listened carefully, but the evil spirits did not move. Could it be that the white light was the light from the so-called soul-gathering pearl? Could it be that the soul-gathering pearl had appeared? This guy could not help but get excited. He wanted to go out and snatch the soul-gathering pearl, but after thinking for a while, he gave up. Even if she could get the soul-gathering pearl, she would not be able to defeat those people. It was better to take it slowly. However, she couldn't let such a good opportunity go to waste. Hence, this fellow began to cultivate in the groove. Although she couldn't sit cross-legged, she was able to forcefully circulate the meridians in her body. This time, the evil spirits outside were in a miserable state. While they were cultivating, they discovered that the soul power in the stone chamber had disappeared. To be precise, the soul power had gathered near the stone platform. No matter how they cultivated, the soul power didn't go to their side. What's going on? Why has it been so abnormal these few days? Yeah, the ghost ancestor must be blaming us for not protecting her statue well. That's why she's blaming us. It's all that new drifter called Little Joe's fault. If she hadn't damaged the ghost ancestor's statue, these things wouldn't have happened. Everyone's gazes couldn't help but turn to Lord Hu and Luan Xiong. If it wasn't for Lord Hu letting the new drifter in and Luan Xiong arranging for her to clean the ghost ancestor's statue, none of this would have happened. Lord Hu and Luan Xiong's expressions were very uncomfortable. If there was a medicine for regret, the two of them would definitely be the first to buy it. It was just a pity that there was no medicine for regret in this world. Lord Hu suddenly stood up and said, "Elder June, I think there might be something wrong with this stone platform. I'll go over and take a look." Hei Shinjo, who was in the groove, was shocked. If he discovered her, she was afraid that she would not be able to survive. Chapter 4502 Self-Deception. Elder June listened to Lord Hu's words and nodded. Be careful. Lord Hu did not think much of it. Every time the soul-gathering pearl opened, the soul-extinguishing baleful winds would not appear. How could there be any danger? Who would have thought that just as he was about to approach the stone platform, countless soul-extinguishing baleful winds would suddenly appear? If not for his high cultivation level, he would probably have been sliced into 1,000 pieces. Even so, he was badly hurt and let out a pig-like scream. Fortunately, those evil spirits only around the stone platform, or the consequences will be more serious. All of a sudden, everybody panics. What's going on? Jun Lao's face changed. Kneel, all kneel. Tiger must have offended the ghost ancestor. We quickly apologize. Yun Chujio heaved a sigh of relief. She pondered in her heart. Could this soul-extinguishing baleful wind be intentionally protecting her? It was not that she was narcissistic. The main reason was that this soul-extinguishing baleful wind did not appear earlier or later. It just had to appear when Lord Hu came to check on the stone platform. It was obvious that he was afraid that she would be discovered. Hei Shinjo saw that the crisis had temporarily been resolved and continued to cultivate. If she did not absorb such dense soul power, then she would be a fool. Elder June and the others saw that the soul-extinguishing baleful winds had been circling around the stone platform. Even though they were suspicious, they did not dare to approach it. They could only wait pitifully for the soul power to return to normal. Hei Shinjo was initially distracted by observing the situation outside. Later on, her cultivation gradually reached a state where she completely forgot about everything around her. She felt that her cultivation posture was a little uncomfortable. She pushed the stone platform to the side with a palm and sat cross-legged in the groove to continue her cultivation. After this fellow had done all these things, she realized that she had fucking tricked herself. The evil spirit's gazes fell on Hei Shinju, filled with worry. Hei Xinjia's mind buzzed. She was playing tricks to court death. Couldn't she just cultivate in there? Why did she have to open the stone platform? What should she do now? Hei Xinjiu didn't have any good ideas at the moment, so she could only stay put. She didn't move and acted according to the situation. This fellow took some time to look around and found that although there was a dazzling white light in the surroundings, she didn't see the so-called soul-gathering pearl. What was going on? However, when this fellow saw the soul-extinguishing baleful wind gathered near the stone platform, she heaved a sigh of relief. No matter what, with these free bodyguards, she could still have some confidence. After a deathly silence, Li Ji shrieked, "No wonder so many abnormal things have happened in the past 2 days. It's all because of this bitch." She deliberately entered our 10,000 spirits cave and deliberately destroyed the statue of the ghost ancestor. Now she's hiding under the stone platform sneakily. She must have ulterior motives. Li Ji's words attracted a lot of people's agreement. Yes, it must be because of this new drifter. Before she came, everything was as usual. But since she came, everything has gone into chaos. She must have deliberately removed the ears of the ghost ancestor statue. Her purpose is to enter the soul-gathering cave so that we can't absorb soul power. It's simply her intention to be killed. Elder June, such a person deserves to die. Please give the order. Let's go up and kill her. Yes, kill her. All of a sudden, the soul-gathering cave was filled with shouts of killing. Chu Mo looked at Hei Xinjiu, who was wearing a blank expression, and felt like her heart was going crazy. You should have just been hiding. Why did you come out of nowhere? Do you want to die? Chapter 45:03. I am the ghost ancestor. Hei Xinjiu's intestines were turning green from regret. However, it had already happened. What was the use of regret? However, what should she do now? Although those soul-extinguishing baleful winds were powerful, if so many people were determined to kill her, she probably wouldn't be able to escape. How great would it be if this damnable teleportation array was activated at this time? No matter where she was teleported to, it was still better than waiting for death here. However, teleportation arrays could not be used just like that. This method could basically be ignored. Fight them head-on? Of course, they could not win. Run? Of course, they could not run either. Were they just going to wait for death? One of Hei Xinjiu's advantages was that she was calmer in times of emergency. Although her heart was in turmoil, she was calm on the surface, as if she did not care about the shouts of the crowd. When this guy saw those soul-destroying murderous winds, his eyes rolled as he had an idea. She shouted coldly, "How dare you? Why aren't you kneeling when you see me?" You even shouted loudly. Have your manners been eaten by dogs? Chu Mo staggered and almost sat on the ground. Was little Jiu possessed or scared out of her mind? The crowd was also stunned. What nonsense did this new drifter say? Li Ji pouted. Bitch, stop pretending to be crazy. Do you think you can survive like this? Dream on. I kneel down to you? Do you think you are the ghost ancestor? Yun Chujiu looked at Li Ji with a cold gaze. I am the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor, so I am naturally the ghost ancestor. Li Ji was stunned at first, then she laughed out loud. You useless piece of trash who doesn't even know how to control the air actually said that you are the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor. Do you think we are all idiots? Yun Chujiu looked at Li Ji as if she was looking at an idiot. Then, she silently chanted a chant, and her body rose into the air, floating in midair. Li Ji looked at Yun Chujiu in disbelief. Clearly, only a black rank 2-star could use the air-controlling technique. How did she do it? The corners of her lips curled up slightly. Am a piece of trash? I've only just awakened my memories, so there are many things that need to be slowly recalled before I can remember. If I am not the ghost ancestor, why would these soul-extinguishing baleful winds protect me? Also, my cultivation has clearly reached at least 2 stars of the black rank, but there is no mole between my brows. This is enough to show the difference between me and you. For a moment, The evil spirits were all dumbstruck as they looked at Hei Xinjiu floating in the air. Could she really be the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor? This was too unbelievable, wasn't it? Li Ji wanted to say something more, but she didn't dare to make a sound because of Elder Jun's cold and ruthless glance. Elder Jun sized up Hei Xinjiu, who had returned to the ground, and said with a cold expression, "The reincarnation of the ghost ancestor is not a trivial matter. We can't just recognize your identity based on the matter of the soul-extinguishing baleful wind." Yun Chujiu chuckled and said, "Then how do you want to verify it? If you want me to fight with you, then forget it. After all, I have just awakened my memory, so it's impossible for me to beat you." Elder Jun sneered and said, "Of course, I won't let you fight with me. There are 3 big words handwritten by the ghost ancestor at the entrance of the 10,000 Spirits Cave. If you write it once now, it's fine if it's ordinary, but if it's different, humph. What's so difficult about that? Just order someone to bring me a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone," Hei Xinjiu said lightly. This fellow thought that if it was someone else's handwriting, she might not be able to imitate it well. Just that dog-like handwriting of ghost ancestor. It was not that she was bragging, but it was exactly the same as before she practiced calligraphy with the pretty boy. It was so ugly. Chapter 4504. Dog Crawl in the Crowd. Chu Emo looked at Hei Xinjiu worriedly. The word ghost ancestor was really ugly. Could little Jiu imitate it? Li Ji stared at Yun Chujiu viciously. She didn't believe that she was the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor. It must be an excuse that this bitch was afraid of death. As long as her handwriting didn't match, she would be killed immediately. Soon, someone brought a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. It was probably also found on the bodies of those who had entered the cave. Yun Chujiu spread the paper on the stone platform and wrote the words 10,000 Spirits Cave without any hesitation. Then, she threw the brush aside and said pretentiously, "You guys can compare it with it. If it's even a little bit different, then I'm lying." Elder Jun looked at the 3 dog-like words on the paper. To be honest, even if he did not go out to compare it, he still felt that it was very similar. After all, such ugly words could not be written by ordinary people. He frowned. Although the ghost ancestor's handwriting is very unique, if someone spent time, they could imitate it. So, this does not prove that you are the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor. Hei Xinjiu was furious. Since she could not prove it, then what was she supposed to write? Elder Jun did not believe that Yun Chujiu was the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor at all. However, he knew that because of the matter of extinguishing soul and Sha Feng, many people present were skeptical. It was not appropriate for him to kill her directly. He had thought that he could expose her by relying on her handwriting. Who would have thought that she would actually write the word dog crawl that was on par with the ghost ancestor? Elder Hu and Lan Xiong looked at each other. They naturally did not want Yun Chujiu to be the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor. If she was really the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor, how could they have their lives? Hence, Elder Hu went forward and said, "Elder Jun, since she said that she was the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor, it is easy to prove her identity. Let's bring her there. We will know whether it is true or not with just one look." Wan Xiong echoed from the side, "That's right. No matter how cunning she is, when she gets there, she has to reveal her true form." Elder Jun pondered for a moment, then said to Yun Chujiu, "If you go back on your words now, it's still not too late. Otherwise, your true form will be revealed later." Yun Chujiu thought to herself, "At this time, the arrow is already on the bow. How could there be any room for regret? If she admitted that she wasn't the ghost ancestor, wouldn't she be dead?" Hence, this fellow's face was calm and composed. "If you have any ideas, just come and try them. True gold isn't afraid of fire. In the reincarnation of the real ghost ancestor, what am I afraid of?" Needless to say, this fellow's actions made many people believe her words. Could this little Jiu really be the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor? Elder June snorted when he saw this. Since you're so stubborn, then follow me. Elder June turned around and walked out of the cave. Hei Shinjio was in a difficult position. She was still protected by the soul-extinguishing evil wind in the cave. If she went out, wouldn't she be slaughtered by others? However, if she didn't go out, wouldn't it mean that she had a guilty conscience? This guy gritted his teeth and swaggered behind Elder June. When Elder June saw that Yun Chujio actually followed him out without any hesitation, he was also a little uncertain. Could it be that she was really the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor? The others also followed him out of the soul-gathering cave. The soul-extinguishing baleful wind surrounding the stone platform also disappeared in an instant. Yun Chujio's heart was in a mess. Where was Elder June going to take her? After Elder June left the tunnel, he ordered someone to move the statue of the ghost ancestor away. It turned out that there was a dark cave entrance. Elder June ordered someone to bring the illuminating bead. Yun Chujio saw that there were stone steps one step at a time. She could not see the end at a glance, and she did not know where it led to. Chapter 45:05 Soul Gathering Pearl. The group walked down the stone steps for an unknown period of time. Hei Shinjo thought that Elder June was trying to tire her to death when she finally saw the ground. She did not know what mechanism Elder June had activated, but it instantly lit up. Yun Chujio looked around and found that this place was very spacious, but it was empty. What did this mean? When everyone came down, Elder June knelt down. The people behind also knelt on the ground. Hei Shinjio blinked her eyes. She had set herself as the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor, so she naturally could not kneel. Otherwise, wouldn't she show her cowardice? Elder June did not care about her. He first kowtowed 3 times respectfully before standing up and taking out a jade token and placing it on the wall. Yun Chujio then realized that there was an inconspicuous groove on the wall. As the jade token was placed on the wall, the entire wall was split into 2, and an entrance appeared. Yun Chujio only felt a cold and bone-chilling air coming out from within and could not help but shiver. Elder June glanced at her and revealed a cold smile as he took the lead to enter. Yun Chujio quickly followed him in, but what she saw stunned her. This was a huge stone room. There were 5 black beads floating above their heads, and the 5 beads emitted a thick, cold aura. Their appearance was actually very similar to the beads that the black beads had swallowed. However, these 5 beads had a faint red glow on them. There was a stone platform in the middle of the stone room, and some cabbages were placed on it. Yun Chujio immediately recognized that these were cabbages that had been transported from the soul-gathering cave. The reason why this fellow was so certain was because there were a few cabbages among them, only the cabbages had no leaves. Cough cough. The leaves were naturally eaten by her because this fellow had shamelessly started to be picky about food. The other people's gazes also fell on the cabbage gang without any vegetable leaves, but no one dared to say anything. Hei Shinjo thought to herself, it seems that Elder June and the others know about the teleportation array. Moreover, the teleportation array was used to transport the cabbage here. It's really cunning. But did those cabbage really get eaten by the soul-gathering pearls? While Hei Shinjo was indulging in her imagination, Elder June said in a deep voice, "The soul-gathering pearls are floating on it. Since you said that you are the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor, you will naturally be recognized by them. As long as you can get one of the pearls, we will admit your identity. Otherwise, it means that you are a fake. We will kill you without mercy." Yun Chujio's eyes flickered. It seemed that the pearls had some tricks up their sleeves. If they could be picked casually, wouldn't these people have taken them all for themselves? She chuckled. What you said isn't right. I've only awakened a little bit of my memories, and these soul-gathering pearls haven't seen me for a long time. It's normal that they can't recognize me at once. If you kill me because I can't get the soul-gathering pearl, it would be too hasty. I think you'd better find another way. Before Elder June could say anything, Li Ji said sharply, "Stop pretending. You're a fake. Otherwise, Why wouldn't you dare to pick the soul-gathering pearl? Do you think you're smart? You're an idiot. Shut up. Is this where you make a big fuss? Elder June said fiercely. Lee Jis' face turned pale, and she didn't dare to say anything. However, she looked at Yun Chujio with a vicious gaze. This bitch was dead for sure. Chapter 45:06 turned into ashes after Elder June reprimanded Li Ji. He said to Yun Chujio, "Cut the crap. If you can't take off a soul-gathering pearl, no matter if you're telling the truth or not, don't even think about leaving this place." Yun Chujio knew that she was forcing a duck onto the shelf, so she could only brace herself to do it. Chu Emo looked at Yun Chujio worriedly. She wanted to say something, but there was nothing she could say. These soul-gathering pearls could release energy, which was 10,000 times more brutal than the soul-extinguishing baleful wind. As long as she got close to the soul-gathering pearls, she would turn into ashes. Yun Chujio spread her hands. "All right, since you insist, I'll take one down for you to see." She walked to the bottom of the soul-gathering pearls and narrowed her eyes to take a look. Then she muttered, "Little baby, hurry up and come to the little miss. The little miss misses you so much." Everyone, this was not the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor. This was a fucking lunatic. Little beauty, all of you are so beautiful that you can topple a country and a city. You are so beautiful. The red halo is so charming. Come to the little sister and let her have a good look. Hei Shinjo kissed the 5 pearls for a long time, but there was no response from them. Hei Shinjo thought to herself, this is fucking awkward. Is she really going to fly up and take them? Even if she thought with her heels she would not end up well if she got close to those pearls. Otherwise, these people would have taken them long ago. She was not the real reincarnation of the ghost ancestor. If she got close, wouldn't she be courting death? What should she do now? Just as this fellow was worrying, Lord Hu said coldly, "Elder June, this bitch must be stalling for time. I think we should just drag her out and kill her." Wan Xiong echoed, "Exactly. She's obviously trying to be mysterious. If she's the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor, it must be a red rain. How can the ghost ancestor be such a waste?" Elder June did not believe that Yun Chujio was the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor. Hearing that, he said coldly, "What else do you have to say? Men, drag her out. Kill her." "Wait. I was just warming up. Isn't it just picking these pearls? What's so difficult about it?" Hei Shinjo said with a pout. This guy complained in his heart. Picking them was a death sentence, and not picking them was a death sentence. He was really worried to death. His eyes swept over the cabbages, and his eyes suddenly lit up. He picked up the cabbages and threw them at one of the pearls. It was unknown whether the pearl was distracted or not, but it was hit by the cabbages and fell to the ground. Hei Shinjo did not dare to approach the soul-gathering pearl. Instead, she said pretentiously, "See. With my status, I don't even need to pick the soul-gathering pearls myself. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and kneel to me. Everybody. How is this possible?" Li Ji looked at the pearl greedily. As long as she swallowed the soul-gathering pearl, she would be able to obtain a physical body and leave this damn place. Therefore, she took a few steps forward to claim the soul-gathering pearl for herself. However, before she could get close to the pearl, she shrieked and turned into ashes. Hei Shinjo was shocked and rejoiced in her heart. Fortunately, she was smart enough to use cabbage to smash it down. If she were to pick it up herself, wouldn't she end up like Li Ji? No wonder these people had set up an array to absorb the soul power of the soul-gathering pearl. It turned out that this thing was so terrifying. Chapter 45:07 was thrown away. Li Jis' ashes caused a commotion. Everyone stepped back, afraid that they would end up like Li Ji. Yun Chujio saw that no one was paying attention to her, so she hugged a cabbage and started eating. Although it was a little degrading, she was hungry. Although eating too much cabbage was a little boring, there was nothing else to eat here, so she could only make do with it. Everyone's initial fear was immediately attracted by this fellow. One had to know that they didn't need to eat anything at all, so how could this little Joe eat cabbage? Could it be that she was really the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor? After all, the ghost ancestor loved cabbage the most. Lord Huss's face was very pale. On one hand, he was frightened by Li Ji's death, and on the other hand, he was afraid that Yun Chuji's identity as the ghost ancestor would be confirmed, and then he would have no way of surviving. He said with a stern expression, "That was thrown down with cabbage. It can't be considered as you picking it yourself. Unless you can pick up the soul-gathering pearl on the ground, otherwise, you are a fake." Wan Xiong also echoed repeatedly, "Yes, that doesn't count. Unless you have it in your hand. Otherwise, you are a fake ghost ancestor with evil intentions." Elder Jun was also unwilling to confirm Yun Chuji's identity as a ghost. After all, without Yun Chujio, he would be the leader of the 10,000 ghost lair. Who would want to have one on his head? Moreover, this little girl's cultivation was so weak. Why would she have one on his head? Therefore, he said in a deep voice, "That's right. Unless you're holding the soul-gathering pearl in your hand, otherwise, you're just spouting nonsense." He Xinjiu secretly complained in her heart. Li Ji was dead before she even got close to her. If she went to pick up the pearl, she would be courting death. However, if she did not pick it up, these people would not be kind to her. Damn it, if she was really the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor, she would definitely torture these dregs to death. Unfortunately, she was not. Just when He Xinjiu was about to hit the wall, the soul-gathering pearl on the ground suddenly rushed towards her. He Xinjiu was so scared that she screamed and threw the half-eaten cabbage in her hand. The cabbage hit the soul-gathering pearl and forcefully threw the soul-gathering pearl into the stone wall. Yun Chujio, to be honest, she just threw it casually. Why did she throw it with so much force? Everyone, could the cabbage be the nemesis of the soul-gathering pearl? Could that little Joe just throw it casually and hit it? For a moment, everyone fell silent again. At this moment, the bead that had been slapped into the wall rushed towards He Xinjiu again. He Xinjiu picked up a cabbage and threw it again, and the miserable bead was once again slapped into the stone wall. After a while, the bead rushed out again. Everyone was dumbfounded as they watched Yun Chujio repeatedly smash the soul-gathering bead into the stone wall with the cabbage. He Xinjiu rolled her eyes and evil thoughts came to her mind. She deliberately moved closer to Elder Jun and the others, scaring them so much that they retreated in fear of being turned into ashes by the soul-gathering pearl. He Xinjiu thought to herself, "You want to kill me? I'll kill you all." Just as she was feeling proud, she did not expect the other 4 soul-gathering pearls to also rush towards her. Her head buzzed. No matter how precise she threw them, it was impossible for her to hit all 5 soul-gathering pearls at the same time. It was over. She was about to turn into ashes. She had yet to have sex with the gigolo, she had yet to find her biological parents, and she had yet to find a way to go back and see Chi-Chi. Was she going to die just like that? Chapter 45:08. Kill him. When this guy thought that he was going to die for sure, the 5 pearls had already arrived by her side and were flying around her. He Xinjiu was stunned to find that she seemed to be completely fine. After being stunned for a moment, He Xinjiu immediately began to show off. "Did you see that? These soul-gathering pearls are playing with me. What else do you have to say this time? Hurry up and kneel down." Everyone stared at each other. Playing? Why did it seem like she was running for her life just now? However, no matter what, it seemed like those soul-gathering pearls really did not harm her at all. Could it be that she was really the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor? Yun Chujia saw that everyone did not react and snorted coldly. "If any of you dare to doubt me again, I will let the soul-gathering pearl die. All of you kneel down." Lord Hu gritted his teeth. "Bitch, you must have used some kind of method to prevent the soul-gathering pearl from hurting you. You can't be the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor. I, Lord Hu, will not recognize you. Yun Chuju sneered. Who do you think you are? What does it matter whether you recognize me or not? Little Juju, kill him. Yun Chuju also finished her words. She then realized that she had no way to command these soul-gathering pearls. Wasn't this a slap to her own face? Lord, who was initially frightened and took a few steps back. However, when he saw that the 5 soul-gathering pearls were only flying around Yun Chuju and did not attack him, he immediately shouted, I already said that you used an unspeakable method. If you have the ability, then you can command the soul-gathering pearls to kill me. Yun Chuju knew that if she did not kill Lord Hu, it would have the effect of killing one to warn the others. These people would still not recognize her identity. However, how could she command these soul-gathering pearls? When this fellow saw the cabbages scattered on the ground, he suddenly thought of those drifters. His heart moved, and he said with a smile, as long as you kill that scum, I'll play the game of destroying cabbages with you. Okay? The red halo on the 5 soul-gathering pearls immediately lit up, and then several soul-extinguishing baleful winds swept towards Lord Hu. Lord Tiger was still feeling pleased with himself. Who would have thought that the soul-extinguishing baleful gales would suddenly attack him? Immediately, several wounds appeared on his body, and he started wailing like a ghost. Seeing this, Hei Xinjiu burst into laughter. She stomped her feet and shouted, Good job. Cut him into 1,000 pieces and kill him. This fellow thought to himself, so those soul-extinguishing baleful gales were made by these soul-gathering pearls. These pearls looked much more powerful than the black pearls that had eaten their fill for nothing. Thinking of the black pearl, Yun Chuju's mood sank. She didn't know where Buttface, the black pearl, and the others had been trapped and how they had disappeared. She thought of Buttface's crying voice in her dream again, and her heart ached. Although she always scolded them and bullied them, it didn't mean that others could bully them. She would definitely save them. While Yun Chuju was distracted, Lord Tiger had already been killed by those soul-destroying evil winds. Yun Chuju's face was very gloomy as she thought of Buttface and the others. She pointed at the trembling Wan Xiong and said, Kill him too. Wan Xiong quickly begged for mercy. Ghost Ancestor, I was wrong. Please spare me. I admit that you are the Ghost Ancestor. Yun Chuju sneered and said, I am the Ghost Ancestor to begin with. Why do I need you to admit it? Kill him. Although this fellow said so on the surface, he was thinking in his heart, Ghost Ancestor, this matter is urgent. I will borrow your identity to use first. Don't blame me. Chapter 4509. Killing the chicken to warn the monkeys. After hearing Yun Chuju's words, the soul-extinguishing baleful winds immediately rushed towards Wan Xiong. Wan Xiong knew that it was useless to beg Yun Chuju, so he shouted at Elder June, Elder June, help! Help! This bitch wants to kill us one by one. You can't be fooled. Wan Xiong was killed by the soul-extinguishing baleful winds before he could speak. Hei's ingenious move was obviously very effective. Elder June's eyes flashed, but he still took the lead and knelt on the ground. Greetings, Ghost Ancestor. We are sorry for what we have done. Please forgive us and forgive us. Yun Chuju was so smart. At first glance, it was obvious that Elder June did not agree with her, but he was temporarily obedient because of the situation. Yun Chuju had just arrived, so it was not appropriate for her to kill Elder June, she said with a smile. It's not strange if you don't know. Besides, it's not wrong for you to be more careful. Get up. Hearing that, everyone stood up. Chu Mo was completely dumbfounded. Little Jiu had become a Ghost Ancestor? This was too unbelievable, wasn't it? Actually, Hei Xinjiu was feeling guilty now, because she knew that she was an imposter. The guy coughed dryly. Little gentleman, I've just awakened my memories, and I can't remember many things. Tell me what you know. Little gentleman? Elder June's old face immediately twitched like a steamed bun. But he did not dare to say anything. He could only bow and say, Ghost Ancestor, our memories are also missing a lot. We've only gradually regained our intelligence more than 10 years ago. The things that we can remember are also very limited. Yun Chujio frowned and pointed at the stone platform. Then, did you guys build this teleportation formation before or after? We did build it after. Although we lost a lot of our memories, some of us still remember some of the formations. In order to avoid being accidentally injured by the soul-gathering pearl while cultivating here, and also to prevent others from monopolizing the soul-gathering pearl, we built this formation. Elder June explained. Yun Chujio thought about it. There were thousands of people here, so it was not surprising that there were people who knew about formations. Then, she asked, then why did you offer the cabbage to the soul-gathering pearl? Could it be that they can eat cabbage? Elder June choked. At the beginning, we only wanted to store the excess cabbage here, but we didn't expect to find that all the cabbage here had disappeared, so it should have been eaten by these soul-gathering pearls. Look, weren't there a few cabbages on the stone platform that had lost their cabbages? Hei Xinjiu touched her nose. The cabbages were clearly eaten by her. All the cabbages had been eaten by the soul-gathering pearls. She didn't believe it. There must be something fishy going on. Yun Chujio suddenly remembered something and asked, let me ask you, who set up the life extermination array outside the cave of 10,000 ghosts? Elder June said awkwardly, after we woke up, the life extermination array was there. As for who set it up, we don't know. However, since the life extermination array was activated 3 years ago, no outsiders have entered this place. We are happy to be alone. Who activated it? Those people wore masks on their faces. Because they didn't have any conflict of interest with us, we didn't go out to investigate, Elder June said. Yun Chujio felt that those people were most likely Princess Mayan's guards, because 3 years ago was when Princess Mayan successfully possessed the body. Yun Chujio frowned. Everything seemed to be arranged by someone. But what was the ultimate goal of the person behind the scenes? Chapter 45, 10 The ghost ancestor was wise who gave Princess Mayan that bead? Did he give it to her after she possessed it, or did he give it to her 10,000 years ago? Did the mastermind want to kill her, or did he want to lure her into the den of 10,000 ghosts? The more Hei Xinjiu thought about it, the more clueless she became. Everything was like a fog. However, since she had a firm footing for the time being, the most important thing now was to bring the pretty boy and Aog in. In this way, she could be considered to have a helper. Therefore, she said indifferently, we'll talk about these things later. Let's leave this place first. Little Pearl, are you guys going to leave with me? Or are you guys going to stay here first? The reason why this fellow asked this was because she had no confidence in taking away these soul-gathering pearls. In order to avoid losing face, it was better to give herself a way out first. The 5 soul-gathering pearls began to tremble violently. One of them flew toward a cabbage, and a red halo flickered. Yun Chujio's mouth twitched. She then remembered the promise she had made just now. These pearls were meant for her to accompany them in the game of smashing. With no other choice, Hei Xinjiu could only pick up the cabbage on the ground and start smashing the pearls. Old June and the rest. Were the soul-gathering pearls crazy, or were they crazy? Why did it feel like everything was a dream? Hei Xinjiu was so tired that she panted and promised to play with them again in 2 days. Only then did the pearls let this guy go. Hei Xinjiu wiped her sweat and said, let's go, let's talk outside. I'm so tired. Everyone could not wait to leave as soon as possible. If they stayed for too long, the cold Inchi here would also harm them. Outside the stone room, the walls were closed again. Elder June wanted to put away the jade token, but when he saw Yun Chujio's covetous gaze, he said painfully, Ghost Ancestor, it's better for you to keep this jade token. Although it's a little troublesome, I've always been considerate of my subordinates, so I'll just reluctantly keep it. Hei Xinjiu snatched the jade token from Elder June's hand and stuffed it into her sleeve pocket. Elder June. He thought to himself that it wouldn't be too late to deal with this little girl when they reached the top without the soul-extinguishing gale and the soul-gathering pearl. Although her handwriting was similar to the ghost ancestors and she was muddle-headed enough to make the soul-gathering pearls listen to her, he still didn't believe that she was the reincarnation of the ghost ancestor. He would hold her down in a while and interrogate her properly. Hei Xinjiu was very shrewd. She had guessed Elder Jun's thoughts most likely. Therefore, as she climbed up the stairs, she began to plan her plans for a while. The soul-gathering pearls did not follow her out. It was likely that they had no way of leaving the stone room or were guarding something. She had wanted to stay there all the way, but after thinking about it, she gave up. If Elder June did not give her cabbages, wouldn't she starve to death? Besides, who knew if those pearls would go crazy? What if she died? But what should they do in a while? After about 2 hours, everyone returned to the top. Elder June was about to make a move when he heard Yun Chujie say in a crisp voice, "Little ones, it hasn't been easy for you to stay here all these years. If you cultivate step by step, I'm afraid it will take a long time for you to cultivate to a physical form. How about this? When I communicate with those soul-gathering pearls in 2 days, it'll have them shorten the time between the opening. This way, you'll be able to speed up your cultivation speed." The evil spirits were most concerned about cultivating to a physical form, so when they heard this, they instantly became excited. "Thank you, Ghost Ancestor. Ghost Ancestor is wise. As expected of our Ghost Ancestor, he really thinks of us everywhere." Chapter 4511. Xiao Jiu's guts were too big. Elder June was furious to death. This damned girl was indeed cunning. She had managed to win over these idiots with a piece of pie. If he were to fall out with her now, most of the people would probably stand on her side. He could only continue to endure and look for an opportunity. If she could not shorten the opening interval of those soul-gathering pearls in a few days, it would not be too late for him to deal with her. Hei Xinjiu glanced at Elder June's sullen face and was secretly happy. "Little brat, are you playing tricks on me? I'll torture you to death." She waved her hand. "This is what I should do. Since I brought you here, I naturally have to be responsible for you. Little gentleman, open the enchantment and let my 2 companions in. To tell you the truth, the man who is very compatible with me is Sheng Zun of the Yen clan. With his help, I believe that you will be able to obtain a physical body faster." Although these evil spirits had lost a lot of their memories, Sheng Zun of the Yen clan had heard of them before. They were all revealing their gossipy expressions. Why did it sound like Sheng Zun of the Yen clan was having an affair with their ghost ancestor? Oh my, there didn't seem to be such rumors before. When did their ghost ancestor hook up with Sheng Zun? Without a sound. Even though Elder June was 120 times unwilling, he still opened the enchantment. Di Baiming and Aog had been guarding the entrance of the cave, but there was an enchantment at the entrance, so they could not enter. Di Baiming wanted to break the enchantment, but he was afraid that he would harm Yun Chujie, so he could only wait anxiously. When they saw the enchantment open, they could not wait to enter. When they saw the situation, they could not help but be stunned, especially Aog, who was dumbfounded. They saw Yun Chujie sitting on a chair, crossing her legs and eating cabbage. And behind her stood many evil spirits, all of them respectfully, not daring to even breathe loudly. Aog thought to himself, "It has only been a few days, and little Jiu has already subdued these evil spirits. This is too magical, right?" Although Di Baiming was a little surprised, but compared to Aog, he was much calmer. In just an instant, he recovered his calm expression. Yun Chujie thought to herself, it was still her pretty boy's mental quality that was good. Aog was obviously someone who had never seen the world. However, when he thought that the 2 of them left without leaving any food for her, he was instantly furious. He glared at the 2 of them fiercely. Aog was stunned by the glare, but the situation was not clear yet, so he could not say anything. "Little gentleman, this lord is a little tired and wants to rest. Do you think this lord is still living on the 18th floor?" Yun Chujie said faintly. Jun Lao was so angry that he was twitching. Of course, he understood what Yun Chujie meant. This stinky girl must have taken a fancy to his cave. But he did not dare to refuse, so he could only say, "Ghost ancestor, how can I still let you live on the 18th floor? This lord's cave is more spacious. I will pack up my things. You can stay there." Yun Chuju nodded. "All right, then you can go and pack up. Also, I can't not have a maid by my side. Chu Emo, you can stay by my side." Chu Emo still had not recovered from the shock and nodded in a daze. If Aog had not been clutching his palm, he would have cried out in shock. Oh God, was there something wrong with his ears? What did that old man call Little Gio? Ghost ancestor? Little Gio? Ghost ancestor? How could these two people be the same person? Little Gio must have used some tricks to impersonate the ghost ancestor. She was too bold. She even dared to impersonate the ghost ancestor. How audacious. You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.